Chapter 1935. Young Master Zhao? Within the pavilion, Yi Xian frowned. Where did this young master come from? Meanwhile, Old Man Profound walked in and bowed slightly. Senior, someone from the Zhao clan has arrived. Yi Xian asked. The Zhao clan? Old Man Profound spoke in a low voice. A clan that doesn't belong to the extreme heaven dimension, and a life-knowing realm expert once appeared in their clan. A life-knowing realm expert. Yi Xian smiled. Interesting. Old Man Profound's face was slightly gloomy. This young Master Zhao might be up to something. Yi Xian smiled. I'll go meet him. Old Man Profound hesitated for a moment and said, How could I ask Senior to make an appearance for such a small matter? You. Yi Xian shook his head. It's fine for me to get involved in some karma, but it's disadvantageous for all of you. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked towards the door. Old Man Profound was rather moved, and he didn't think too much about it before hurriedly following Xianxia out. Within the auction hall, Yi Xian walked over to young Master Zhao, and there was an old man behind him. The old man's aura was deep and he was a soul essence realm expert. Yi Xian gazed at young Master Zhao and smiled. Young Master Zhao, are you here to bid for a divine object? Young Master Zhao sized up Yi Xian and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Who are you? Yi Xian smiled. I'm here to bid for a divine object as well. As he spoke, he turned to look at Old Man Profound. Let's begin. Old Man Profound glanced at young Master Zhao, and then he turned to look at an old man in the distance. Let's begin. The old man nodded and then he walked up to the auction platform. He withdrew a piece of black armor and said, Everyone, this armor is called the Celestial Armor. It's extremely hard and it can withstand a few dozen attacks from a soul essence realm expert without being damaged. The starting bid is 50,000 celestial crystals. 50,000 celestial crystals. Many people in the hall were slightly tempted when they heard this, but no one dared to make a bid. They just looked at young Master Zhao. Young Master Zhao suddenly smiled. 50,000. Yi Xian immediately said, 100,000. Hearing this, young Master Zhao looked at Yi Xian and smiled. You are not giving me any face. Yi Xian blinked. Fair auction, fair auction. Young Master Zhao's lips curled into a cold smile. Fair auction? Yi Xian smiled and said, Is there a problem? Young Master Zhao laughed. No problem. What's wrong with a dead person? As soon as he finished speaking, the black-robed old man behind him suddenly grabbed Yi Xian with one hand. A powerful force was about to tear Yi Xian apart. However, someone was faster than him. Xiwang suddenly disappeared from where he stood. A ray of sword light tore through the battlefield. Boom. The black-robed old man was pushed out of the hall, and at the instant he stopped moving, a sword pierced through the center of his forehead. Instant kill. Seeing this scene, young Master Zhao was instantly dumbfounded and he was completely stunned. The green profound sword completely absorbed the black-robed old man's soul. At the same time, Xiwang suddenly appeared behind young Master Zhao, and a sword was pressed against the back of his neck. Yi Xian looked at young Master Zhao and smiled. Now you can inform your family members to come. Remember, ask them to bring more heaven-grade crystals. Young Master Zhao said angrily, Are you trying to rob me? Xiwang suddenly slashed down with his sword. Young Master Zhao's right arm was chopped off and blood splattered. Young Master Zhao was shocked and he hurriedly said, Yes, we can talk this out. I'll ask my father. Yi Xian smiled. Then you better hurry up. Young Master Zhao hurriedly said, All right, all right. As he spoke, he took out a voice transmission talisman and crushed it. It didn't take long before a powerful aura appeared, and then an old man appeared before everyone. Seeing this person, young Master Zhao hurriedly said, Father, save me. Old Man Profundity, who stood by Yi Xian's side, spoke solemnly. That's the patriarch of the Zhao clan, Zhao Qing. Zhao Qing paid no attention to young Master Zhao, and he gazed at Yi Xian instead. May I know how my Zhao clan has offended you? Yi Xian chuckled. You can ask your son. Zhao Qing turned around to look at young Master Zhao when he heard this. Young Master Zhao hurriedly said, Father, they bullied me. I didn't do anything. Zhao Qing's face was livid. Shut up. He knew what sort of person his son was. Zhao Qing gazed at Yi Xian. It's my fault for not disciplining him properly. Please show mercy. Yi Xian chuckled and then he said, Xiwang, let young Master Zhao go. Xiwang nodded, and then he sheathed his sword and returned to stand behind Yi Xian. Zhao Qing cupped his fists. Thank you. Yi Xian smiled. Let's go. Meanwhile, young Master Zhao suddenly ridiculed. Weren't you very capable just now? What, are you afraid now that my father is here? Zhao Qing suddenly slapped young Master Zhao across the face. Smack. A crisp sound of a slap rang out. Young Master Zhao was sent flying. Zhao Qing looked at Yi Xian, cupped his fists and said, Excuse me. With that he disappeared with young Master Zhao. Yi Xian looked into the distance, smiled and then turned to Old Man Profound. Let's continue. Old Man Profound nodded. Yes. The auction continued. Yi Xian took Xuang with him and left the place. Outside, high in the clouds, Zhao Qing looked down at Heaven's Fate City, silent. Beside him was young Master Zhao. Young Master Zhao asked in a low voice, Father, can you see through that youth? Zhao Qing shook his head. Young Master Zhao's expression was solemn. I wanted to provoke him into making a move but he didn't. There are only two explanations. One, he's really in the fate-aware state and he doesn't want to make a move. Two, he's not in the fate-aware state and he's been faking it all along. Zhao Qing was silent. Young Master Zhao said in a low voice, Father, he has an ancient relic treasure on him. We've coveted the relic for so long but it ended up in his hands. Zhao Qing shook his head. That's why we have to be cautious. The relic is not ordinary, especially that space-time formation, and this person can actually break it. As he spoke, he shook his head again. This person is not simple. Young Master Zhao said in a low voice, Father, those treasures are secondary. The most important thing is the supreme-grade crystal mine. According to our estimations, there are at least 3 supreme-grade crystal mines, and those mines contain at least hundreds of thousands of supreme-grade sky-grade crystals. Apart from that, there might be countless ancient manuals and treasures. Supreme-grade crystal mine. Zhao Qing's face was dark. This was what he wanted the most. A supreme-grade crystal mine was enough to change the fate of a family. Young Master Zhao said again, he only has 3 primordial spirit realm experts by his side. Zhao Qing said, what if he's really in the fate-aware state? Young Master Zhao shook his head, impossible. If he's really in the fate-aware state he would have killed me when I provoked him, not let me go. Not only would he not let me go, he would also not let the Zhao family off. But he chose not to do so, which means he's wary of us and wants to minimize the problem. Zhao Qing fell silent. Young Master Zhao said, I've already investigated. From the moment he entered Heaven's Fate City he hasn't made a move. Of course, even if he's not in the fate-aware state he's definitely not an ordinary person. As he spoke he looked at Zhao Qing. Father, are you willing to make a bet? Zhao Qing slowly closed his eyes. Young Master Zhao glanced at Zhao Qing, not saying a word. After a long time Zhao Qing opened his eyes. This fat piece of meat is not something the Zhao family can swallow. Come, let's go contact the Wang family. With that he left with young Master Zhao. Not long after the two left, a shadow appeared on the scene. It was Dark Addiction. After a moment of silence, Dark Addiction turned and left. Not long after, Dark Addiction appeared in the small loft where Yi Xian was. Dark Addiction bowed slightly. Senior, it's as you expected. The Zhao family really has a plan. As he spoke he repeated the conversation between the father and son of the Zhao family. Yi Xian smiled, not saying a word. Dark Addiction glanced at Yi Xian. Senior, are you going to annihilate the Zhao family? Yi Xian suddenly asked. Dark Addiction, how many heaven-grade crystals can you earn from a job? Dark Addiction said in a low voice. It depends on the target. If it's an assassin of the primordial soul realm, it'll be around 10,000. Yi Xian smiled. Then do you know how many supreme-grade heaven-grade crystals are needed to advance from the primordial soul realm to the fate-aware state? Dark Addiction shook his head. I don't know. Yi Xian looked at Dark Addiction. At least 2 million supreme-grade heaven-grade crystals. 2 million. Hearing that, Dark Addiction and Xuang were stunned. After a while, Dark Addiction smiled bitterly. No wonder there are so few fate-aware state cultivators in the world. 2 million heaven-grade crystals. I'm afraid the entire Heaven's Fate City doesn't have that many. Xuang's expression also turned gloomy. 2 million supreme-grade heaven-grade crystals. Not to mention supreme-grade heaven-grade crystals. Even ordinary heaven-grade crystals would make her despair. As for supreme-grade heaven-grade crystals, she didn't dare to think about it anymore. Yi Xian smiled. Under normal circumstances, it's impossible for you to reach the fate-aware state. However, there are many abnormal situations in this world. Hearing that, Dark Addiction quickly said, Senior, what do you mean? Yi Xian smiled. I have a plan. Listen to it. Dark Addiction quickly said, Okay. Yi Xian smiled. The fastest way to earn money isn't to earn money. It's to borrow. Borrow. Dark Addiction and Shuang were confused. Yi Xian looked at Dark Addiction. Dark Addiction, if you trust me, follow me from now on. I guarantee you that you will reach the fate-aware state in 100 years. Dark Addiction was stunned. Then he quickly bowed. From now on I, Dark Addiction, will follow your orders. Yi Xian smiled. Help me to keep an eye on them. Inform me immediately if they do anything. Remember, don't let them discover you. Then he paused and said, The game has to be played slowly for it to be interesting. Dark Addiction nodded. I understand. Having said that, he disappeared quietly. After Dark Addiction left, Shuang asked, Master, do I really need that many heaven-grade crystals to reach the fate-aware state? Yi Xian nodded. Maybe even more. Dark Addiction's expression turned gloomy. Yi Xian smiled. Don't worry. Just follow me. I'll find a way to help you reach the fate-aware state. Shuang looked at Yi Xian. Master, why are you so nice to me? Yi Xian was stunned. Then he smiled. You're my disciple. If I don't treat you well, who will? Shuang looked at Yi Xian, lowered his head slightly and said nothing. P.S. Yesterday I went back from my hometown and spent the whole day on the bus. I slept until now. Update late. Sorry. Chapter 1936. After the auction ended, Yi Xian obtained a total of 1,500,000 Heavenly Supreme Crystals. That was only 500,000 Supreme-grade Heavenly Supreme Crystals. What troubled him the most was that Sister Shui had already used up more than 1 million Supreme-grade Heavenly Supreme Crystals. Judging from the current situation, it might not be enough. Yi Xian gave all the Heavenly Supreme Crystals he obtained from the auction to Sister Shui. Now he only had tens of thousands of Supreme-grade Heavenly Supreme Crystals with him. Of course, Yi Xian did not spend all his time acting tough. He was also cultivating. His current goal was to reach the Fate Matrix realm. This was not difficult for him. All he needed was some time. 3 days later. 30 years had passed in Xiao Ta's body. Now Yi Xian had reached the Fate Matrix realm. On the huge rock, Yi Xian took a deep breath greedily. Although he was only at the Fate Matrix realm, he could definitely fight an Essence Soul realm expert. After all, he had the green profound sword and the mysterious spacetime. A moment later, Yi Xian arrived at Sister Shui's cultivation place. At this moment, Yang Yanxue showed no signs of breaking through. Yi Xian's face darkened when he saw this. Because Sister Shui had less than 200,000 Heavenly Supreme Crystals left. It was still not enough. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he turned around and left. He had to find a way to get some Heavenly Supreme Crystals for Sister Shui. Damn it! Once Sister Shui reached the fate-knowing realm, he would be able to rise. Sister Shui was not as heartless as his father. A moment later, Yi Xian left Xiao Ta. As soon as he left Xiao Ta, Dark Addiction appeared in front of him. Dark Addiction said solemnly, Senior, the Zhao family has joined forces with the Wang family to kill you. Yi Xian frowned slightly. The Wang family. Dark Addiction nodded. The Zhao family and the Wang family are both major families. They once produced life-knowing realm experts. They are very powerful. Yi Xian smiled. How are they going to kill me? Dark Addiction said solemnly, I don't know. All I know is that they have gathered almost 28 Essence Soul realm experts. 28. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn it, when did Primordial Soul realm experts become so worthless? Was there something wrong with him? How could he continue to act tough like this? Dark Addiction continued. It's clear that they don't want to underestimate you, but they probably don't know that you're really at the fate-aware realm. Not to mention 28 Primordial Soul realm experts, even 280 Primordial Soul realm experts are ants. Yi Xian was speechless. Dark Addiction said, Senior, they might make a move in the next few days. Yi Xian smiled and said, Why are they able to gather so many Primordial Soul realm experts? Dark Addiction said, Foundation. Such a large family clan usually has a deep heritage. It's normal for them to have more than 10 Essence Soul realm experts. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. Dark Addiction asked in a deep voice, What does Senior plan to do next? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. What else can I do? Destroy them, of course. Dark Addiction nodded. If Senior makes a move, you can destroy these two clans with a flip of your hand. Yi Xian shook his head. I won't make a move. Dark Addiction was shocked. Why? Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. These ants are not worthy for me to make a move. Dark Addiction hesitated for a moment and said, that's true. However, if Senior doesn't make a move and they come for you, Senior. Yi Xian smiled and said, just listen to my orders. Dark Addiction quickly said, yes, Senior. With that he quietly disappeared and hid himself. After Dark Addiction left, Yi Xian felt a headache coming on. Damn it. 28 Primordial Soul Realm experts. They thought too highly of him. Su Wang and the others were definitely no match for them. Moreover, he had to make a move. If he did not make a move, Su Wang and the others would definitely not be able to defeat them. Headache. The more Yi Xian thought about it, the more headache he felt. He actually wanted to sneak back to find Aunt Ding. Aunt Ding had a sword light in her hand. Who was she afraid of? But the problem was that it was too late for him to sneak away now. They would definitely not allow him to return to the Women's Academy. Yi Xian quickly looked at Yang Yanxue. Her aura was still as calm as still water and there was no sign of a breakthrough. Yi Xian's headache intensified when he saw that. I can only rely on myself. Suddenly a woman walked into the room. Su Wang turned to look at her and his eyes narrowed slightly. The green profound sword in his hand trembled and he was about to attack. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, let her come here. It was Xiongho. Xiongho walked over to Yi Xian, glanced at Su Wang and then looked at Yi Xian with a smile. Let's have a chat? Yi Xian nodded. Su Wang, go help old man Xuanji. Su Wang bowed slightly and retreated. Xiongho looked at Yi Xian. The Zhao and Wang families have gathered 32 Essence Soul Realm experts. Not only that, but they've also hired some Essence Soul Realm mercenaries from other places. A conservative estimate is that there are at least 50 Essence Soul Realm experts. 50. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. Have they gone mad? 50? Xiongho licked her candied fruit and said, who's to blame? You blame yourself. You've put on too much of a show. They don't dare to underestimate you. Yi Xian was speechless. Xiongho continued. For now, I think you're finished. Because they won't allow you to rush back to the Women's Academy. Even if you rush back, Miss Ding's sword light might not be enough. As she spoke, she glanced at Yi Xian with a spurious smile. After putting on an act for so long, you're finally finished. Yi Xian was expressionless. You seem to be gloating. Xiongho giggled. Feels good, huh? Yi Xian was speechless. Xiongho asked again, what did you get from the ancient relic? Yi Xian smiled. A few supreme-grade mineral veins. Xiongho said in a low voice. No wonder they paid such a high price to target you. A few supreme-grade mineral veins could allow them to cultivate another life-knowing state expert. They'll definitely fight for it. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. What's your next plan? Yi Xian was silent. Plan? He wanted to surrender now. Xiongho continued. You can't run now. If you run, they won't have any scruples. Right now they're still wary of you. Yi Xian smiled. Then what do you think I should do? Xiongho looked at Yi Xian. Call for help. Yi Xian smiled. Call for who? Xiongho looked straight at Yi Xian. Call for the people behind you. The people behind him. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. He wanted to call for help, but he couldn't sense Qing. He didn't want to call for Qing himself either. If he troubled Qing for everything, wouldn't that make him look like a second-generation heir? Of course, if others went to look for Qing, it would have nothing to do with him. As for his father, he'd already forgotten about him. Xiongho said, you have no other choice but to call for help. She rose and left. In the hall, Yi Xian was silent. After a long time, he shook his head with a smile. What had he not seen before? Wasn't it just 50 or so primordial spirits? Inside the hall, Yi Xian was silent. Somewhere high in the clouds, Zhao Qing found Zhou Xian and the god of wilderness. Zhao Qing smiled. Are you two interested in joining us? Zhao Xian smiled. Lord Zhao, that's a life-knowing state expert. Zhao Qing shook his head. Don't you two have any idea whether he's a life-knowing state expert or not? Zhao Xian smiled but said nothing. Zhao Qing wanted to say something else. but the god of wilderness suddenly laughed. You two chat. With that he turned and left. Zhao Qing glanced at the god of wilderness, then at Zhao Xianxiao. Zhao Xianxiao smiled. Lord Zhao, I won't be participating in this. Farewell. With that he too turned and disappeared into the horizon. Zhao Qing was silent for a moment, then shook his head. Gutless. With that he turned and left. On the other side the god of wilderness murmured, they're going to make a move on Yi Xian. Zhao Xianxiao said in a low voice. Clearly they think Yi Xian isn't a life-knowing state expert. The god of wilderness smiled. What do you think? Zhao Xianxiao shook his head. Again, whether he's a life-knowing state expert or not, he's no ordinary person. This Zhao Qing is only looking for the two of us to be cannon fodder. The god of wilderness smiled. Who do you think will win? After a moment of silence, Zhao Xianxiao said, if Yi Xian isn't a life-knowing state expert, then he's finished. The god of wilderness said, he's not a life-knowing state expert. Zhao Xianxiao smiled. Why do you say so? The god of wilderness said softly, if he really was a life-knowing state expert he would have wiped out the Zhao and Wang families with a single slap. Zhao Xianxiao smiled. Indeed. The god of wilderness smiled. Let's wait and see. Inside the loft Yi Xian got up and left. As soon as he stepped out of the pavilion, Old Man Profound Ji appeared beside Yi Xian. Old Man Profound Ji said in a deep voice, Senior, there are many unknown and mysterious auras around Heaven's Terminus City. I just went to investigate and they are all primordial spirit realm experts. Some of them are from the Zhao clan. The Zhao family. Yi Xian looked back. Not far away, Dark Addiction showed up quietly. Dark Addiction said, Senior, there are at least 40 primordial spirit experts gathered outside. Not only that, but there are also some assassins lurking in the shadows. They've been spying on us all this time. Musen also appeared. Musen looked at the distant horizon and frowned. Have they gone mad? How dare they covet Senior's wealth? Old Man Profound sneered. They dare do this because they think Senior isn't a life-knowing state expert. A bunch of ignorant fools. Musen looked at Yi Xian. Senior, do you have other plans for them? Yi Xian smiled but said nothing. At this moment 2 middle-aged men appeared in the sky. One of them was Zhao Qing, and the other was the Wang family's patriarch Wang Shao. Zhao Qing looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Young Master Yi, we've investigated your background. Yi Xian said with a smile. My background? Zhao Qing stared at Yi Xian. You're not a life-knowing state expert. As he spoke he flicked his finger and several scrolls landed in front of Musen, Old Man Profound, Mu Zhanghe and Xuang. Zhao Qing smiled. Everyone, this is young Master Ye's information. Take a look and you'll know if I'm telling the truth. Musen and the others looked at each other but didn't make a move. At this moment Xuang suddenly grabbed the scroll in front of him and exerted force. The scroll turned to ashes. Chapter 1937. Musen and Old Man Profundity exchanged glances, and then they destroyed the scrolls in front of them. Mu Zhanghe destroyed the scrolls as well. Zhao Qing shook his head and smiled when he witnessed this scene. Young Master Yi, you're really amazing. You actually made these nascent soul realm experts be so loyal to you. Meanwhile Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Both of you can leave. Old Man Profundity and Musen smiled bitterly when they heard Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at them and then he smiled. Both of you should be aware of my true strength, right? Musen nodded. To be honest, we've investigated young Master Yi. Moreover, there are many things about young Master Yi that can't stand up to scrutiny. For example, young Master Yi never takes the initiative to attack and he's always scaring others. Yi Xian roared with laughter. Both of you can leave. Both of them glanced at each other and were slightly hesitant. Yi Xian smiled. Staying here would just be like dying for nothing. Go. After all, both of you don't owe me anything. Musen remained silent for a moment and then he bowed slightly. Young Master Yi, take care. As soon as he finished speaking he turned around and left. The reason he'd stayed earlier was mainly because he wanted to see if Yi Xian had any trump cards. But now it seemed like Yi Xian didn't have any. The gap in their strengths was too huge and he didn't want to take the gamble. After Musen left, Old Man Profundity cupped his fists. Young Master Yi, take care. As soon as he finished speaking he turned around and vanished as well. Yi Xian gazed at Mu Zhanghe. Mu Zhanghe hesitated for a long time, and then he glanced at the 50-plus nascent soul realm experts in the sky. In the end he sighed softly. Take care. As soon as he finished speaking he turned around and left. Actually, he slightly wanted to stay because Yi Xian had really killed his previous master. However, he knew that Yi Xian wasn't at the life-knower realm. Staying was equivalent to taking a huge gamble, and he didn't want to gamble with his life. After Mu Jianghe left, Yi Xian looked at Xu Wang in front of him and said, "You should leave too." Xu Wang shook his head. "I'll accompany you." Yi Xian laughed and said, "You will die." Xu Wang shook his head again. "I'll go with you." Yi Xian shook his head. "I'm not a fate knower." Xu Wang looked straight at Yi Xian. "I know." Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, "Why did you still stay here?" Su Wang looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Let's go. This is my own problem, I will face it myself." However, Xu Wang still did not say anything. He refused to leave. Yi Xian had a headache. "There's no point in you staying here. Do you understand?" Xu Wang just stared at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian still wanted to say something. Meanwhile, Zhao Qing laughed and said, "Since she refuses to leave, then she can accompany young Master Yi in death." As soon as he finished speaking he took a step forward, and a terrifying pressure suddenly swept down from the sky. Meanwhile, Xu Wang suddenly shot into the sky with the green profound sword in hand. The howl of a sword shook the sky. The moment Su Wang made his move, 6 afterimages suddenly appeared around him in a strange manner. Bang! The sword light shattered and Xu Wang was blasted back over 3 kilometers. As soon as she stopped, a few afterimages arrived silently. A ferocious look flashed through Xu Wang's eyes and she slashed down with her sword. Bang! One of the afterimages was blasted away. She was just about to attack again to deal a fatal blow when another afterimage arrived. Xu Wang roared in rage and swept her sword horizontally. Bang! A wave of sword light shook the surroundings and the afterimages were blasted back. Zhao Qing's face fell when he saw this. Wang Xiao, who stood by his side, said solemnly, "The sword in that woman's hand." As he spoke, a wisp of greed flashed through his eyes. How could they not realize that one of the main reasons why Xu Wang's combat strength was so terrifying was because of that sword? It was a super divine weapon. Although Xu Wang was holding the green profound sword, she was only one person while there were 6 of them. Moreover, they had no intention of killing her and they were only trying to keep her busy. Of course, they couldn't kill her as well. Xu Wang's combat strength was too terrifying when she held the green profound sword. Although it was 1 against 6, Xu Wang was still able to suppress them. However, she was being kept busy as well. Yi Xian glanced at Xu Wang and shook his head with a sigh. Silly girl. He really hadn't expected that Xu Wang would risk her life for him after finding out that he wasn't at the destiny-knowing state. Meanwhile, Zhao Qing suddenly smiled. "Young Master Yi, if you hand over the Heaven Supreme crystals, I can let you die with dignity." Yi Xian smiled. "The Heaven Supreme crystals are in my body. You can take them yourself." Zhao Qing's eyes narrowed slightly. "Young Master Yi, are you still trying to frighten me at a time like this?" Yi Xian shook his head and chuckled. "You really talk a lot." As soon as he finished speaking he suddenly vanished on the spot. A wisp of a ferocious expression flashed through Zhao Qing's eyes, and then he took a step forward and smashed his fist down. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly swung his sword. It wasn't the green profound sword, but he'd utilized the spatial pressure of that mysterious expanse of space. Bang! Everyone watched as Zhao Qing was actually blasted 3 kilometers away by Yi Xian's attack. Moreover, the expanse of space where Yi Xian's attack descended had actually been obliterated. Even the 11th layer of space had been obliterated. Everyone in the surroundings was shocked when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian wasn't at the destiny-knowing state, but this fellow was even more terrifying than a destiny-knowing state cultivator. He'd repulsed a nascent soul realm cultivator at the destiny-knowing state. Mu Xin and the old man Profound Secrets exchanged glances in the shadows, and there was a wisp of shock in both their eyes. They hadn't imagined that Yi Xian would actually be such a monstrous genius. A destiny realm cultivator actually possessed such terrifying strength. It was too terrifying. On the other side, Xiong Ho, who was licking her tonghulu, had stopped as well, and her eyes were filled with disbelief as she gazed at Yi Xian. She hadn't imagined that Yi Xian's strength would have actually arrived at such a level. Isn't the growth of this fellow's strength a little too abnormal? Zhao Qing, who stood before Yi Xian, was slightly stunned as well. He hadn't expected that Yi Xian's attack would heavily injure him. Yes, it was a heavy injury. That attack from Yi Xian had heavily injured him and even almost destroyed his body. Even though he'd been careless, Yi Xian was only at the Destiny realm. A monstrous genius. Zhao Qing stared fixedly at Yi Xian. You're truly a monstrous genius. Yi Xian shook his head and chuckled. It was a pity that his previous attack lacked a bit of power. Otherwise it would have been enough to instantly kill Zhao Qing. This also made him understand that with his current strength, he no longer had to fear a primordial spirit expert. Of course he wouldn't be afraid of one, but he would be at his wits' end if there were dozens of them. Beside Zhao Qing, Wang Xiao said in a low voice, "Brother Zhao Qing, this fellow's background isn't ordinary." Viciousness flashed in Zhao Qing's eyes. So what if he's not ordinary? We have no way out now, so we must kill him. Wang Xiao nodded. He looked at Yi Xian and was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Patriarch Zhao, let's have a duel." A duel. Zhao Qing looked at Yi Xian with an incomparably savage expression. "Yi Xian, why should I have a duel with you?" Yi Xian smiled. "I'm only in the Fate Matrix realm, but you're already in the Primordial Spirit realm. What, are you afraid?" Zhao Qing stared at Yi Xian without a word. Yi Xian continued, "Patriarch Zhao, what is the greatest taboo for a cultivator?" "Fear is the greatest taboo. If you don't even dare to accept my challenge as a Fate Matrix realm cultivator, what's the point of cultivating? As for the Fate Matrix realm, there's no need for you to cultivate. Anyone who has reached the life-knowing realm has always been fearless, but people like you..." He shook his head with a smile and didn't say anything else. Zhao Qing glared venomously at Yi Xian. "You're trying to ruin my Dao heart." Yi Xian laughed heartily. "Ruin your Dao heart? Patriarch Zhao, if your Dao heart is strong, why do you need me to ruin it? Your Dao heart is ruined because it's not strong enough. Why is your Dao heart not strong enough? That's because you're afraid." Zhao Qing snarled, "Yi Xian." He was about to attack when Wang Xiao stopped him. He looked at Zhao Qing and said, "Brother Zhao Qing, if you really attack, you'll be falling into this guy's trap." Zhao Qing fell silent and his expression gradually returned to normal. Wang Xiao looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, your strength is nothing but your eloquence is impressive." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "If you don't dare to fight me one-on-one, then forget it." As he spoke, he sensed Yang Yanxue in his body. She was still cultivating and showed no signs of a breakthrough. Moreover, she only had about 100,000 extreme heaven crystals left. Yi Xian sighed in his heart. Sister Shui is unreliable. Suddenly, Yang Yanxue's voice rang in Yi Xian's mind. "Dad, we don't have enough extreme heaven crystals. Hurry up and get some for me." Yi Xian's expression froze. "Sister, I'm being surrounded by dozens of primordial spirit realm cultivators. Can you come out and help me fight?" Yang Yanxue did not respond. Yi Xian asked again, "Did Dad give you anything that can save your life? Lend it to me first. I'll return it to you when I'm done." Yang Yanxue still did not respond. Yi Xian was stunned and then he hurriedly said, "Sister, say something. I'm at my wit's end." Still no response. Yi Xian's expression froze. Suddenly Wang Xiao looked at Zhao Qing and asked, "Are there any experts approaching?" Zhao Qing closed his eyes slowly. After a while he shook his head. "My men said there are no experts nearby." Wang Xiao nodded. In fact, they were afraid that Yi Xian would have reinforcements. Therefore, they had left some experts to keep an eye on the surroundings because they were afraid that Yi Xian would have reinforcements. Zhao Qing looked at Yi Xian in the distance, his expression cold. Kill. The experts behind him were about to swarm Zhao Qing. Yi Xian's expression changed when he saw this. He hurriedly said, "Zhao Qing, fight me one-on-one if you can." Zhao Qing grinned. "One-on-one? I have the advantage in numbers. Why should I fight you one-on-one?" He waved his hand. Almost 40 strong primordial spirit realm cultivators behind him dashed toward Yi Xian as soon as he finished speaking. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. "Damn it, they're ganging up on me. How immoral." Just as Yi Xian was about to activate his bloodline power and fight to the death, a powerful aura suddenly swept over from the starry sky. The sudden turn of events caused everyone's expression to change. They looked up and saw the starry sky suddenly split open. Almost 10,000 people charged out and the people leading them were life knowers. There were 6 life knowers. Everyone was dumbfounded. Why were there so many life knowers? Behind these 6, the 10,000 people were all peak primordial spirit realm experts. In the starry sky, the middle-aged man who led the group was shocked when he saw Zhou Xian. In the next moment, he and the 10,000 experts behind him appeared in front of Zhou Xian. The middle-aged man said in a trembling voice, "Greetings, young Master Yi." As he said that, he bowed deeply. Behind him, everyone knelt down on one knee in unison. Everyone was petrified. P.S. I had my wisdom tooth pulled yesterday. I'm about to break down. Do you have any friends who have had their teeth pulled? Some readers told me that after a tooth is pulled, you can drip a drop of balm on it to make it more comfortable. Is that true? Chapter 1938. Needless to say, everyone in the surroundings was stunned at this moment. 6 destiny knowers. 10,000 primordial spirits. Where did all these experts come from? Zhou Xian was also a little confused. Who were these strong people in front of him? Why were they so respectful to him? Did he have a special identity that no one knew about? For a moment, it was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. The middle-aged man in front of Zhou Xian quickly said, "It's normal that you don't know us. This is our first time meeting you." He approached Zhou Xian and whispered, "We know young Master Ye's sister." Sister? Zhou Xian's eyes widened. The one in the plain dress? The middle-aged man nodded. Qinghe. Zhou Xian's mind went blank. Where did Qinghe find so many terrifyingly strong experts for him? Zhao Qing suddenly asked, "You are?" The middle-aged man in front of Zhou Xian turned to look at Zhao Qing, then at Zhou Xian. "Young Master Yi, is this your friend?" Zhou Xian shook his head. "They want to gang up on me." The middle-aged man was furious. "How dare you?" After saying that, he turned to look at Zhao Qing and an invisible pressure shrouded Zhao Qing. "How dare you disrespect young Master Yi? How dare you?" Zhao Qing and the others were dumbfounded by his words. "Young Master Yi? Where did this young Master Yi come from?" Zhou Xian looked at the middle-aged man. "How should I address you, sir?" The middle-aged man replied, "Grand Heavenly Venerate." He seemed to have thought of something and quickly added, "Young Master Yi can just call me Mu Yunxi." Zhou Xian smiled. "I'll call you Senior." The middle-aged man's expression changed. He quickly said, No, you can't. I wouldn't dare be young Master Ye's senior. Young Master, you can call me Mu Yunxi. If you're not used to it, you can call me Grand Heavenly Venerate." Zhou Xian nodded. "Then I'll call you Grand Heavenly Venerate." The Grand Heavenly Venerate nodded. "All right." Zhao Qing and the others were flabbergasted by this scene. How could a destiny-knowing expert be so respectful to Zhou Xian? That was the fate-knowing state. Where did this second generation come from? Why have I never heard of it? Zhao Qing and the rest began to panic. God Huangyuan and Zhao Xianxiao's expressions were extremely solemn, and they rejoiced in their luck. It was fortunate that he didn't join the Zhao and Wang clans, otherwise he would be dead. On the other side, Mu Xin and Old Man Profound Secrets had bitter expressions on their faces. They knew that Zhou Xian was definitely not a simple character, but they didn't expect Zhou Xian to be this extraordinary. They knew that they had lost a great opportunity, one that could have allowed them to reach the destiny-knowing state. It was too late for regrets. Xiong Ho's face was also filled with confusion. She knew that there was someone behind Zhou Xian, but she didn't expect the person behind Zhou Xian to be so terrifying. 6 destiny knowers and tens of thousands of primordial spirits. What kind of divine force was this? Fierce Ho fell into a deep silence. In the distance, Zhao Qing quickly said, "Your Excellency, this is a misunderstanding." The Grand Heavenly Sovereign ignored Zhao Qing and turned to look at Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian faintly smiled. "Zhao family head, what kind of misunderstanding is this?" Zhao Qing bowed slightly and said with a trembling voice, "Young Master Yi, it is our fault. We were blind and offended young Master Yi. I ask young Master Yi." Zhou Xian suddenly smiled. "Kill them all. Leave none alive." Hearing this, Zhao Qing was stunned. The next moment his expression became ferocious. "Zhou Xian, do you have to be so ruthless? My ancestor was also at the destiny-knowing state. Don't you know that it is better to leave a way out for others in the future?" Zhou Xian shook his head. "There is no future. Because the Zhao family will be wiped out." Zhao Qing wanted to say something, but the Grand Heavenly Sovereign waved his right hand. In an instant all the experts behind him attacked. At this moment Zhou Xian suddenly said, "Leave their souls alive." The Grand Heavenly Sovereign nodded and disappeared. A bloody scene appeared. The bodies of the experts from the Zhao clan and Wang clan exploded one after another like fireworks. It was an extremely bloody sight. In less than a breath of time, a few dozen nascent soul realm experts had perished. Zhao Qing and the others were stunned. They didn't even have the ability to fight back. They hadn't imagined that they wouldn't be able to fight back at all when facing a destiny-knowing state expert. Is the gap between us that huge? Wang Xiao gazed at Yi Xian and spoke with a trembling voice, "Young Master Yi Wei." Meanwhile, Yi Xian issued a command in his heart, and the green profound sword suddenly flew out and entered the center of Wang Zhao's forehead. After that, it swiftly started absorbing Wang Zhao's soul. Zhao Qing and the others were horrified when they witnessed this scene, and they intended to resist. However, a mysterious force suppressed them, causing them to be unable to move at all. They could only watch as the green profound sword absorbed their souls one by one. Despair. Zhao Qing knew that he was finished. The Zhao clan was finished as well. He'd offended someone he shouldn't have. Zhao Qing gazed resentfully at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, I curse you. I curse your entire family to be annihilated." His entire family to be annihilated? Yi Xian blinked. "I'm not panicking at all." Zhao Qing intended to say something else, but the green profound sword suddenly entered the center of his forehead, and then his soul was instantly absorbed completely. In less than 10 minutes, the souls of all the nascent soul realm experts present here had been completely absorbed. After it absorbed the souls of all the nascent soul realm experts, the green profound sword's aura rose explosively. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly when he witnessed this scene. The green profound sword might be on the verge of breaking through again. After all, there were almost 50 nascent soul realm experts here. Yi Xian put the green profound sword away, and then he placed it within Xiao Ta so that little soul could slowly break through. After that, Yi Xian turned around to gaze at Xu Wang, who stood nearby. At this moment, Xu Wang's countenance was pale and he was covered in injuries. The green profound sword had exhausted a huge amount of energy, and she'd fought 6 enemies by herself just now. So she'd suffered injuries. Yi Xian smiled. "Go into Xiao Ta and recuperate first." Xu Wang nodded and then he entered Xiao Ta. Yi Xian looked at the Grand Heavenly Venerate, who hurriedly bowed slightly. "What can I do for you, young Master Yi?" Yi Xian asked softly. "Where did you meet Qing'er?" The Grand Heavenly Venerate replied solemnly, "The faraway burial zone." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Burial zone?" The Grand Heavenly Venerate nodded. "Most of the destiny-knowing state experts are there now. Everyone is researching the realms above the destiny-knowing state." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "I understand." With that, he opened his palm and countless spatial rings flew into his hand. These spatial rings belonged to Zhao Qing and the others. He glanced at them and all of them added up to more than 1,000,000 extreme heaven crystals. They weren't supreme grade. Yi Xian glanced at Big Sister Shui, who was in Xiao Ta. At this moment, there were only a few tens of thousands of extreme heaven crystals around Big Sister Shui. Yi Xian sighed softly, and then he placed all the extreme heaven crystals before Yang Yanxue. Meanwhile, Yang Yanshue's voice suddenly resounded. "Brother, I knew you wouldn't disappoint me." Yi Xian felt a headache coming on when he heard this. The Grand Heavenly Venerate glanced at the surroundings and said, "Young Master Yi, are you coming to the burial zone with us?" Yi Xian gazed at the Grand Heavenly Venerate. "The burial zone?" The Grand Heavenly Venerate nodded. "It's much more suitable to develop there. There are too few extreme heaven crystals here. Simply speaking, the resources here aren't enough to nurture many destiny-knowing state experts. No, it should be said that it's impossible to nurture any destiny-knowing state experts here. The resources required to nurture a destiny-knowing state expert are too huge. This place is too small and there are too few resources here. It's not suitable for development." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "I understand. I'll think about it." The Grand Heavenly Venerate nodded slightly. "All right." As he spoke, he glanced up into the sky and said, "We'll be waiting for young Master Yi. If young Master Yi needs anything, just let me know." Yi Xian nodded. "All right." The Grand Heavenly Venerate bowed slightly once more, and then he led the others away. As for Yi Xian, he headed directly to the Zhao clan and Wang clan. The resources and reserves of these two great clans were extraordinarily deep, and they definitely had countless divine treasures and extreme heaven crystals. It would be a waste not to take them. After Yi Xian left, Mu Sen and Old Man Profundity shook their heads and smiled bitterly. They knew that Xuang had profited greatly. Xuang hadn't left Yi Xian even when he faced a life-and-death situation. So, based on Yi Xian's character, would he mistreat her? He definitely wouldn't. Yi Xian would definitely do everything in his power to help her attain the destiny-knowing state. Mu Sen shook his head and sighed. Hard work and natural talent are important in life, but fortune is even more important. If we lose this fortune today, then we'll probably never be able to break through again in our lifetimes. Old Man Profundity's expression was dim. Mu Sen smiled bitterly. It's fate. Fate. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Old Man Profundity remained silent for a long time before he turned around and left as well. On the other side, Mu Jianghe had extremely complicated emotions in his heart. At the beginning, he'd wanted to stay behind like Xuang and face the Zhao and Wang clans with Yi Xian. But in the end, he didn't want to gamble with his life. After all, he only had one life. Now he'd managed to keep his life. But he'd lost a chance to change his fate. Fate. Mu Jianghe sighed softly and then he turned around and left. Xiongho silently licked her candied haws in the clouds. After a long time she sighed softly as well, turned around and left. She'd given up in the end. The current Yi Xian wasn't someone she could scheme against. Not to mention the Grand Heavenly Venerates and the others, she might not even be able to defeat Yi Xian herself. After all, this fellow was covered in divine treasures. In the starry sky, an old man beside the Grand Heavenly Venerate asked, "Grand Heavenly Venerate, are you really going to bring young Master Yi to the burial zone?" Grand Empyrean whispered, "What? You're not willing?" The old man hesitated for a moment before he said, "Senior didn't ask us to take young Master Yi with us." Idiot. Grand Empyrean was a bit angry. Think about it. If we leave with young Master Yi, what would that mean? This means that we have a relationship with that senior. The old man was stunned. Grand Heavenly Venerate continued, "We follow young Master Yi and young Master Ye's backer is our backer. Do you understand?" The old man hesitated for a moment before he said, "I understand." Grand Empyrean was brilliant. "This subordinate admires you." Grand Heavenly Venerate looked into the distance and whispered, "A great god who has surpassed the life-knowing realm but is unknown. We must cling to him." Chapter 1939. Yi Xian got more than 1 million Supreme Heavenly Crystals and 300,000 Supreme Heavenly Crystals in total after visiting the Zhaos and the Wangs. Both clans' resources had fallen into Yi Xian's hands. Of course, they hadn't fallen into his hands either because he'd given them to Yang Yanxua. Sister Shue's cultivation was simply a bottomless pit. Now he'd already used up almost 2 million heaven crystals. However, he still hadn't broken through his limit. Even he was on the verge of collapsing. She was his biological sister. He couldn't just ignore her. Yi Xian felt a headache coming on. A short while later, Yi Xian arrived before Xuang. At this moment, Xuang's injuries were almost fully healed. Xuang didn't speak when he saw Yi Xian. Yi Xian sized Xuang up and said, "Did you know that you would die if you stayed behind?" Xuang nodded but didn't speak. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. "Then why did you stay behind? Aren't you afraid of death?" Xuang glanced at Yi Xian. "You're my master and I'm your disciple." Yi Xian chuckled, "But I'm not at the fate-enlightened realm." Xuang looked Yi Xian in the eye. "You're my master. It has nothing to do with you being at the fate-enlightened realm." Yi Xian fell silent for a long time and then he grinned. "Follow me from now on. I'll take good care of you." Xuang nodded. "All right." After Yi Xian left Xiaota, he went up into the stars and looked for the Grand Heavenly Venerate. The Grand Heavenly Venerate hurriedly bowed when he saw Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian chuckled. "There's no need to be so polite in the future. I'm not used to it." The Grand Heavenly Venerate hesitated for a moment before he nodded. "I'll listen to you." Yi Xian looked up into the stars and said, "How long will it take to get to the burial zone?" The Grand Heavenly Venerate spoke solemnly. "Half a month." "Half a month." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "Let's go to the burial zone." It was as Grand Empyrean had said, this place couldn't cultivate many Fate Realm cultivators. If he and Su Wang wanted to reach the Fate Realm, they would have to go to the burial zone to find more resources. Yi Xian never thought that he would have to worry about money one day. A moment later they set off for the burial zone. Right at this moment, The azure profound sword suddenly appeared in Yi Xian's hand. Yi Xian held the azure profound sword and said with a smile, "Little Hun, you've broken through?" Little Soul said excitedly, "He broke through." Yi Xian laughed. "It's good that you've broken through." As he spoke, he slowly closed his eyes and carefully felt the Xianxian sword. Sure enough, the green profound sword had become different. If he were to wield the green profound sword now, he could easily kill an Essence Soul Realm expert. At this time, Grand Empyrean suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, this sword, can I have a look?" Yi Xian said with a smile, "Of course." As he spoke, he handed the green profound sword to Grand Empyrean. Grand Empyrean took the green profound sword and looked at it. His expression instantly became serious. "This sword is extraordinary." Yi Xian glanced at Grand Empyrean and said with a smile, "I made it." After saying this, he immediately regretted it. "Damn it. I've been showing off for too long, I can't stop." Hearing Yi Xian's words, Grand Empyrean was stunned. Then he glanced at Yi Xian and didn't dare to say anything. Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. "This sword was made by Qing as a gift for me to play with." A woman in a plain dress. Grand Empyrean said solemnly, "No wonder. If this sword falls into the hands of a Fate Realm swordsman, it will be too terrifying." Yi Xian hurriedly asked, "Is there a Fate Realm swordsman in the burial zone?" Grand Empyrean nodded. "There is, but there are very few. I know that Daoist is also a peerless swordsman." Yi Xian slightly nodded. After going to the burial zone, he must cultivate Su Wang to the Fate Realm as soon as possible. As for himself, he wasn't in a rush because he had just reached the Fate Realm. At this time, Grand Empyrean returned the sword to Yi Xian. Yi Xian put away the green profound sword and said, "Empyrean, you can tell me about the burial zone." Grand Empyrean nodded. Almost all the top powerhouses in the universe are gathered in the burial zone because there are many top-quality crystal mines and resources there. After reaching the Fate Realm, if you want to open a new realm, you will need a huge amount of cultivation resources. Therefore, that place is very cruel and there is often competition for resources, which are top-quality crystal mines. Yi Xian asked, "In other words, Fate Realm is the highest known realm?" Grand Empyrean smiled bitterly. "Before I met that senior, it was like that. But that senior..." With that, he glanced at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, if I may ask, what is that senior's realm?" Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. "I don't know what level Qing has reached." Grand Empyrean frowned. "Young Master Yi doesn't know either?" Yi Xian nodded. Grand Empyrean was silent. He didn't expect that even Yi Xian didn't know what level the woman in the plain dress had reached. Yi Xian closed his eyes slowly. He sensed the 3 premium crystal mines in his body. By then, the 3 premium Supreme Heaven crystal mines had produced more than 10,000 premium Supreme Heaven crystals. This made Yi Xian a little excited, but he soon calmed down. Tens of thousands of top-quality crystal had been produced in a short period of time. It was a lot, but it was too little to break through to Fate Realm. Yang Xianxia had consumed more than 2 million Supreme Heavenly crystals, and most of them were Supreme Heavenly crystals. However, she did not show any signs of having a breakthrough yet. It would be very difficult to cultivate Shuang to the life-knowing realm with just these 3 Sky Supreme crystal mines. Even if he could, it would take at least 1,000,000 years. At this moment, Grand Empyrean suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, we have arrived at Calming Soul City." Yi Xian looked into the distance and saw an ancient city in the distance. The entire city was gloomy and emitted a powerful soul aura. Grand Empyrean introduced, "Calming Soul City is the territory of a Fate Realm expert. His name is Yu Hun and he has a lot of influence in the burial zone. If we want to go to the burial zone, we have to use the Star Zone transfer array in Calming Soul City. It will save us a lot of time." Yi Xian looked at Grand Empyrean. "Will there be any trouble?" Grand Empyrean chuckled. "What trouble? Could it be that they would dare to stop us? If they dare, we can just destroy Calming Soul City." Yi Xian. Grand Empyrean smiled. "Actually, I usually win people over with virtue." Yi Xian smiled. "I can see that." Grand Empyrean was a little embarrassed. Yi Xian smiled. "Let's go." After they entered Calming Soul City, Yi Xian found that there was no one in the city. It was very, very deserted. Grand Empyrean said, "Yu Hun is a soul cultivator. This place is actually a place for him to cultivate souls. He has raised a lot of souls for himself to devour." Yi Xian said softly, No wonder there are no living people here. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared before them. Grand Empyrean clasped his hands. Brother Calming Soul, we are returning to the burial zone. We would like to borrow your star zone transfer array. Yu Han glanced at Yi Xian and then he smiled. It's not a big deal. As he spoke, he waved his right hand and over a dozen enormous star zone transfer arrays suddenly appeared on his right. Grand Empyrean gazed at Yi Xian. Let's go. Yi Xian nodded and was about to leave. However, Yu Han suddenly said, Young friend, wait a moment. Yi Xian turned around to look at Yu Han. Yu Han smiled. Young friend, you have a Heaven Supreme crystal mine. And it's a top-grade one at that. Yi Xian frowned when he heard that. How could he know? Meanwhile, Grand Empyrean's face fell and he gazed at Yi Xian. Let's go. Yi Xian nodded and then he walked towards the star zone transfer array. Grand Empyrean glanced coldly at Yu Han, and then he walked over as well. After Yi Xian and the others entered the star zone, a strange glow flashed through Yu Han's eyes. At least 3 top-grade Heaven Supreme crystal mines. Within the star zone, Yi Xian gazed at Grand Empyrean. How did he know that I have 3 top-grade Heaven Supreme crystal mines? Grand Empyrean smiled bitterly. He has a divine treasure that can detect the mines. I was careless. He hesitated for a moment and said, Young Master Yi, you have to hide those 3 top-grade Heaven Supreme crystal mines. Otherwise it might cause a lot of unnecessary trouble. That was because top-grade Heaven Supreme crystal ores were extremely precious even in the burial zone. It can be said that if 3 ownerless top-grade Heaven Supreme crystal mines suddenly appear in the burial zone, then countless life-knowing realm experts would go mad. Yi Xian nodded slightly. I understand. As soon as he finished speaking, he asked Xiao Ta to seal the 3 top-grade Heaven Supreme crystal mines. As if he'd thought of something, Yi Xian asked, Will Yu Han cause trouble once he finds out that I have 3 top-grade Heaven Supreme crystal mines? Grand Empyrean spoke coldly. If he dares to cause trouble, then he'll be annihilated. Yi Xian smiled. Grand Empyrean, are you one of the mysterious powers in the burial zone? Grand Empyrean spoke proudly. The first. Yi Xian blinked. The first. Grand Empyrean was about to nod, but he seemed to have thought of something. He hesitated for a moment and said, We were the first before but we aren't anymore. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Grand Empyrean smiled embarrassedly. We encountered Senior Sichuan and offended her. Then, at this point he didn't continue because he was filled with endless lingering fear. At that time, that woman had destroyed their headquarters Heaven Soul Shrine, with a single swing of her sword. Just one swing of her sword. Not only had that swing of her sword destroyed Heaven Soul Shrine, but it had also killed 3 life-knowing realm experts. They weren't in the shrine at that time. If they were, they would be dead as well. It was too terrifying. Even now, Grand Empyrean felt a lingering fear in his heart. He hadn't felt so terrified since he'd attained the life-knowing realm. Hearing Grand Empyrean's words, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He understood. These Grand Empyreans had been taught a lesson by Qing'er. Indeed, those who had been taught a lesson by Qing'er would usually become humble and low-key. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Stand up. In the eyes of Qing'er, destiny knowers were like ants. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled bitterly. Damn it, do I really have to be the 2nd generation for the rest of my life? This is not the life I want. Yi Xian felt that he was in a bit of pain. As a 2nd generation he was really in a bit of pain that others could not understand. P.S. I remember the explosion, I won't just bluff it away like this. Chapter 1940. Burial Zone. When Yi Xian followed the Grand Heavenly Venerate and the others to the burial zone, Yi Xian found that the spiritual energy in the burial zone was much purer than in other places. Along the way, the Grand Heavenly Venerate said, In this place, apart from the holy veins, the supreme grade Heaven Supreme crystals are the rarest resources. And the conflicts and fights here basically all stem from fighting over these cultivation resources. Yi Xian said, I have 3 supreme grade Heaven Supreme crystals on me. What level do they belong to here? The Grand Heavenly Venerate glanced at Yi Xian. Tycoon. Yi Xian, the Grand Heavenly Venerate said, Young Master Yi, after we go to the Sky Soul Temple, don't go out unless you have something important to do. Because Yuan Hun knows that you have the Heaven Supreme crystals on you. I'm afraid he'll cause trouble. Yi Xian smiled. As if thinking of something, he looked at the Grand Heavenly Venerate. Grand Heavenly Venerate, as far as I know, once you reach the life-knowing state you can sense danger and avoid it. When you met Xianxia, the Grand Heavenly Venerate and the others looked embarrassed. Zhou Xian asked with a smile, "What's wrong?" The Grand Heavenly Venerate smiled bitterly. "Young Master Yi, you're right. The life-knowing state can sense danger and avoid it. However, there were two special circumstances. The first was that we would meet someone much stronger than us. Your sister belongs to this category. The second is when we encounter danger, but it's too late to avoid it. Your sister belongs to this category. The moment she made her move, we were already doomed. Avoid it? It's too late." Zhou Xian, the Grand Heavenly Venerate's smile became even more bitter. Zhou Xian asked again, "When the life-knowing state expert targeted me, didn't they sense danger?" The Grand Heavenly Venerate glanced at Zhou Xian, hesitated and asked, "Young Master Yi, your current strength." Zhou Xian smiled and said, "What I mean is, don't I have a younger sister behind me?" Great Heavenly Venerate thought for a while before coming up with a more tactful wording. "Young Master Yi, your sister is your sister. In other words, your sister's strength has nothing to do with you." Zhou Xian's expression froze. Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young Master, you really don't know what you're doing." Zhou Xian was speechless. Soon, everyone arrived at the Heaven Soul Temple. The previous Heaven Soul Temple had been destroyed by the plain-dressed woman. This Heaven Soul Temple had been temporarily built by Grand Empyrean and the others. Revenge? Grand Empyrean and the others never had this thought. Damn it, he killed several life-knowing realm cultivators with a single slash and he still wants revenge? How could he report it? At a time like this, anyone with a little bit of intelligence would know that they had to suck up to him and not take revenge. Grand Empyrean arranged a luxurious hall for Zhou Xian. Not only that, but he also sent 2 life-knowing realm cultivators to guard him. In one of the halls, the Grand Empyrean and the other supreme experts of Heaven Soul Temple were gathered here. The Grand Empyrean spoke solemnly, "Everyone, I have an idea." Everyone looked at the Grand Empyrean. The Grand Empyrean spoke softly, "The Temple Master was eliminated, so we don't have a Temple Master now. So, I want to nominate a Temple Master." An old man smiled, "Grand Empyrean, you're the strongest, so you should naturally be the Temple Master. All of us will accept you as the Temple Master." Everyone hurriedly nodded in agreement. However, the Grand Empyrean shook his head, "I want young Master Yi to be the Temple Master." All the spectators were stunned when they heard this. The old man hesitated for a moment and said, "Grand Empyrean, what do you mean?" The Grand Empyrean spoke softly, "If we want to suck up to that senior, then we must go through young Master Yi." All of them exchanged glances and remained silent. The Grand Empyrean continued, "Everyone, we wouldn't even have the chance to come into contact with an expert like that plain-dressed woman, let alone receive guidance from her. However, we have a chance now. It's young Master Yi. Why didn't she kill us and instead showed us young Master Yi's portrait? It's very simple. It's because she wants us to follow young Master Yi. If I'm not wrong, then she wants to temper young Master Yi. If we follow young Master Yi and encounter her in the future, then just a little bit of guidance from her would be an opportunity to change our fates." All of them fell silent. The Grand Empyrean continued, "If we don't have such a fortuitous encounter, then we might not be able to take a step forward even if we struggle for another 1,000,000 years. What do all of you think?" After a long moment of silence, the old man said, "We'll listen to the Grand Empyrean." The Grand Empyrean nodded, "Then we'll respect young Master Yi as the Temple Master. However, I need all of you to remember something." As he spoke, he glanced at everyone here and continued, "We respect young Master Yi as the Temple Master, not to find a puppet. Since we respect him as the Temple Master, then we must really accept him as the Temple Master. After coming into contact with young Master Yi, we know that young Master Yi isn't a hypocrite. If we treat him sincerely, then he will treat us sincerely as well. I hope all of you remember that." All of them hurriedly nodded. The Grand Empyrean said, "Since no one has any objections, then we'll go see young Master Yi right now." As soon as he finished speaking, he led all of them away. "All of you want me to be the Temple Master?" Zhou Xian was stunned when he found out why the Grand Empyrean had come here. "Be the Temple Master?" Zhou Xian immediately shook his head. "Grand Empyrean, I'm not strong enough to be the Temple Master." The Grand Empyrean smiled, "You can." Yi Xian fell silent for a moment and then he said, Grand Empyrean, I know what you mean. Your main objective is Qing. If I meet Qing'e, then I can ask her to give all of you some guidance. As for the position of Temple Master, The Grand Empyrean smiled. Young Master Yi, our Heavenly Soul Shrine has 7 life-knowing realm experts and 12,000 origin soul realm experts. Besides that, we have 2 top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystal mines and 2 million top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystals. As he said this, he looked at Yi Xian. If you're willing to be the Temple Master, all of these are yours. You can assign them to you. Yi Xian. The Grand Empyrean continued. In order to survive in the burial zone, it's always good to have more people. Yi Xian fell silent. He naturally knew that the Grand Empyrean wanted to bind himself to him. Would it be bad for him? No. At the thought of this, Yi Xian smiled. Grand Empyrean, if I become your Temple Master, are you really willing to follow my orders? The Grand Empyrean quickly said, Of course. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Good, I'll be the Temple Master. The Grand Empyrean was overjoyed. He quickly bowed respectfully. Greetings, Temple Master. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. Grand Empyrean, how many top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystals do I need to advance from the Primordial Spirit Realm to the Destiny-Knowing Realm? The Grand Empyrean thought for a while and said, It depends on the person. Some might need 3 million top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystals, while others might need more. Of course, it might also be less. 3 million top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystals. Yi Xian's face sank. Sister Xue had already devoured more than 2 million top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystals. Obviously, it was still not enough. In other words, a conservative estimate would be that more than 1 million top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystals were needed. Besides that, he still had to help Su Wang reach the Destiny-Knowing Realm. He was having a headache. Fortunately, the 3 Heavenly Supreme Crystal mines in his small tower could produce quite a lot of Heavenly Supreme Crystals every month. Based on the time inside the small tower, a Heavenly Supreme Crystal mine could produce thousands of Supreme-grade Heavenly Supreme Crystals every year. Of course, it didn't mean that the tens of thousands of Supreme-grade Heavenly Supreme Crystals could be used right away. It would take dozens of years before they could be condensed into useful Supreme-grade Heavenly Supreme Crystals. In other words, he would get thousands of top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystals every few days. It was not a small amount. However, if he wanted to cultivate a cultivator to the Destiny-Knowing Realm, the rate of production was too low. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian looked at the Grand Empyrean and said, If you believe me, you can put the 2 top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystal mines in your hands with me. I have Xiaota. The space-time inside Xiaota is different from the outside. The Grand Empyrean said with a smile, Of course I believe you, Temple Master. Please wait a moment, Temple Master. I'll go get it. With that he turned around and left. In the palace, Yi Xian contacted Sister Xue, who was still cultivating. Sister Xue, how long do you need to reach the Destiny-Knowing Realm? There was no response. Yi Xian was speechless. Soon the Grand Empyrean came to Yi Xian. He took out a storage ring and handed it to Yi Xian. Temple Master, you must put this Heaven Supreme Crystal mine in a place with spiritual qi as soon as possible. Otherwise, without the supply of spiritual qi, it won't be able to produce top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystals. Yi Xian nodded and put away the storage ring. At this time the Grand Empyrean said, Temple Master, there are millions of top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystals in the storage ring. Yi Xian looked at the Grand Empyrean and said with a smile, Are you going to give me all the assets of the Heaven Soul Shrine just like that? The Grand Empyrean said with a smile, Since we've appointed you as the Temple Master, we naturally have to respect you. He paused for a moment before he continued, Hall Master, I know that you might have other ideas, but you can rest assured that we didn't make you the Hall Master because we wanted to make you a puppet. We truly respect you. Of course, our purpose is also very simple. We hope you can lead us to a new height. Yi Xian said with a smile. For example, to reach the Destiny-Knowing Realm? The Grand Empyrean nodded quickly. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, I understand. As he spoke, he looked at the storage ring in his hand and smiled. I, Yi Xian, won't take advantage of you for nothing. The Grand Empyrean smiled and didn't say anything else. After a while, the Grand Empyrean left, and Yi Xian took out another 1 million top-grade Heaven Supreme Crystals and placed them next to Sister Xue. Besides that, he'd also asked Su Wang to start breaking through to the Destiny-Knowing Realm. As for himself, he knew that based on his current condition, it was impossible for him to attain the destiny-knowing realm in a short period of time. However, Su Wang could. All he needed was money. Once Su Wang attained the destiny-knowing realm, he would be invincible amongst all destiny-knowing realm cultivators with the help of the green profound sword. This world is too dangerous, so it's better to train a few more bodyguards. Of course, he needed to improve himself as well, and he wanted to attain the life physique realm first. Cultivate the life physique. In the next period of time, Xian started to cultivate like crazy, and no one disturbed him in the Heaven Soul Shrine. Chapter 1941. Xian had been cultivating for almost 100 years inside the Xiaota, but only 10 days had passed in the outside world. Now he had reached the life flesh stage. His physical body had been greatly strengthened. In addition, he had become more and more adept at controlling the mysterious spacetime. Now, not only could he use the spacetime pressure of the mysterious spacetime, but he could also use the spacetime abyss of the mysterious spacetime. He also realized that the spacetime abyss of the mysterious spacetime was different from the spacetime abyss in the outside world. His intuition told him that even a life-knowing state powerhouse would not be able to escape from it easily. Of course, there was a problem. How could he send a life-knowing state powerhouse into the spacetime abyss of the mysterious spacetime? That was a problem. It was worth mentioning that Yang Yanxue's aura had finally changed. The aura that Yang Yanxue exuded had far exceeded the primordial spirit stage. Xian knew that she was about to reach the life-knowing state. If she had not reached the life-knowing state, he would have collapsed. This was because Yang Yanxue had spent more than 3,500,000 supreme-grade supreme sky crystals since the beginning. If this went on, he would not be able to afford it. After a while, Xian got up and left the small tower. He walked outside. The Heaven Soul Hall was located on a mountain peak. Below the mountain peak was an endless mountain range. At first glance, he could see all the mountains. Xian looked down at the endless mountain range and smiled. Peace. This kind of peace was rare for him. Because along the way he was either fighting or on his way to fight. It was rare for him to have this kind of peace. Now he had no enemies. No one would come to mess with him anymore. Xian seemed to have thought of something. The green mysterious sword suddenly appeared in his hand. He looked at the green mysterious sword in his hand and smiled brightly. With his current strength and the green mysterious sword, it was not impossible for him to fight a life-knowing state powerhouse, especially with the mysterious spacetime. At this time, the Grand Heavenly Venerate appeared next to Xian. Xian smiled. Grand Heavenly Venerate, you came at the right time. I have just broken through, so I would like to exchange a few moves with you. The Grand Heavenly Venerate was stunned, then smiled. Okay, let's go somewhere else. As he spoke, he and Xian vanished on the spot, and when they appeared again, they'd arrived in a deathly silent starry sky. Grand Empyrean smiled and said, Temple Master, make your move. Xian nodded. In the next moment, the green profound sword in his hand suddenly flew out. Grand Empyrean's eyes narrowed. What a fast sword. This was what Grand Empyrean was thinking. He didn't think too much, and a powerful space-time pressure appeared before him. He believed this space-time pressure was enough to suppress Xian's sword. However, his expression changed drastically in the next moment because Xian's sword had directly disregarded his space. Grand Empyrean was shocked. He didn't have time to think and raised his arm to block. Boom! A ray of sword energy shattered, and the Grand Empyrean was thrown into the mysterious abyss of time and space. The moment he entered the mysterious space-time abyss, Grand Empyrean's expression changed greatly. His hands pressed down and a powerful force swept out from his body. In an instant, the entire space-time abyss began to boil. However, his power wasn't enough to break the space-time abyss. Inside the space-time abyss, Grand Empyrean fell like crazy. His body began to dissipate bit by bit under the destruction of the space-time abyss. Grand Empyrean wasn't willing to give up and quickly used many different types of space-time power. However, all of his space-time power was useless inside the space-time abyss. At this moment, Grand Empyrean began to panic. He couldn't care about anything else and quickly looked at Xian outside. If he didn't go out now, his body would completely disappear. Not only would his body disappear, but even his soul would disappear. He would be erased. Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword flew into the space-time abyss and brought Grand Empyrean out. After coming out, Grand Empyrean let out a sigh of relief. He looked at Yi Xian with a face filled with disbelief. Temple Master. Yi Xian was actually a bit shocked. Because he didn't think that the moment the green profound sword touched Grand Empyrean, it would send him into the mysterious space-time abyss. It was sent, not sent. His guess wasn't wrong. Even a life-knowing realm cultivator would find it difficult to escape. However, he also knew that Grand Empyrean had underestimated his enemy. If Grand Empyrean hadn't underestimated his enemy and hadn't let the green profound sword touch him, he wouldn't have been sent into the mysterious space-time abyss. Green profound sword. Yi Xian looked at the green profound sword in his hand. After pondering a bit, he walked up to Grand Empyrean and handed the sword to him. Grand Empyrean, take it. Grand Empyrean looked at Yi Xian. He didn't think much and grabbed the green profound sword. With a thought from Yi Xian, Grand Empyrean was sent into the mysterious space-time abyss. Grand Empyrean was terrified. At this moment the green profound sword brought him out. Grand Empyrean looked at Yi Xian with a face filled with disbelief. The corner of Yi Xian's mouth curled up. He found that as long as Grand Empyrean touched the green profound sword, he could send him into the mysterious space-time abyss. What did this mean? It meant he could play dirty. Thinking about this, Yi Xian couldn't help but laugh. Seeing how sinister Yi Xian's smile was, Grand Empyrean's expression became strange. This temple lord wasn't a good person. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian's smile suddenly disappeared. Enemy. Damn. I need enemies. Thinking about this, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He had gotten a bit carried away. At this moment, Grand Empyrean said, Temple Lord, that space-time you just used. He was both fearful and curious about the mysterious space-time Yi Xian had displayed. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and smiled. That was something Qing'er did for me. The woman in the plain dress. Grand Empyrean shook his head with a wry smile. No wonder. Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, an old man appeared in front of Grand Empyrean. The old man was about to say something to Grand Empyrean when Grand Empyrean's expression turned cold. The old man was taken aback, then hurriedly looked at Yi Xian and bowed. Temple Lord, Martial Spirit City has sent an invitation. Yi Xian frowned. Martial Spirit City? Grand Empyrean quickly explained. Another super faction. Yi Xian looked at the old man and smiled. What invitation? The old man hurriedly handed over the invitation. Yi Xian opened it and frowned. Grand Empyrean looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian handed the invitation to Grand Empyrean. Grand Empyrean took the invitation and frowned. Yi Xian smiled. They invited me to Martial Spirit City. They said they found a ruin left behind by a hardship cultivator. Hardship cultivator. He had heard from Xiong Ho that the Yuan spirit realm was created by this person. He was a peerless genius. Grand Empyrean said solemnly, Hardship cultivator. Yi Xian looked at Grand Empyrean and smiled. Tell me about this hardship cultivator. Grand Empyrean smiled bitterly. He really is a super genius. Since ancient times his talent is second only to King Xueshan. Yi Xian frowned. King Xueshan. Grand Empyrean nodded. The one who created the life-knowing state. Yi Xian said softly, to create the life-knowing state, that's amazing. Grand Empyrean nodded. Very amazing. This hardship cultivator is also a genius among geniuses. A month after King Xueshan reached life-knowing state, he also reached life-knowing state. In fact, he was on the verge of breaking through, but King Xueshan was one step faster. As he spoke, he paused for a moment before continuing. If it really is a relic left behind by the ascetic cultivator, then it must be extremely precious, because according to what I know, the ascetic cultivator controlled 12 saint veins and 68 premium crystal mines. Yi Xian blinked. That many supreme-grade crystal mines? Grand Empyrean smiled. The supreme-grade crystal mines are all right. The most precious are the saint veins. It can be said that one saint vein is equivalent to 10 supreme-grade crystal mines. Yi Xian's countenance changed upon hearing that. Grand Empyrean was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly asked, Grand Empyrean, outsiders don't know that I'm the Sky Soul Temple's temple master, right? Grand Empyrean shook his head. Outsiders don't know yet. Yi Xian thought about it and said, let's go to Martial Spirit City. But you're the temple master and I'm your disciple. Understand? Grand Empyrean hesitated and said, Temple master, you mean that I'm in the light and you're in the dark? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Grand Empyrean thought about it and said, All right. Yi Xian smiled. Then I'll address you as master from now on. Grand Empyrean roared with laughter. Let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, he and Yi Xian set off for Martial Spirit City. On the way, Grand Empyrean introduced Martial Spirit City to Yi Xian. Martial Spirit City was established by a peerless expert Wu Lingmu. There were 12 people who attained the Destiny Knowledge Realm, and they were ranked according to the order in which they entered the Destiny Knowledge Realm. The first was King Xueshan, the second was Kuxiu, and Wu Lingmu was ranked 9th. Although he wasn't as good as King Xueshan and Kuxiu, he was still a peerless expert. Yi Xian said solemnly, "Are King Xueshan and Kuxiu still alive or dead?" Grand Empyrean shook his head. "I don't know. They vanished after they attained the Destiny Knowledge Realm. As for where they went, no one knows." Yi Xian frowned slightly. Martial Spirit City said that they found a ruin left behind by Kuxiu. Could it be a conspiracy? Grand Empyrean shook his head again. "I don't know. Let's wait and see. We'll know when we reach Martial Spirit City." Yi Xian nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. The two sped up. Less than 2 hours later, the two of them arrived at Martial Spiritual City. Not far from the city gates stood a statue. Grand Empyrean looked at the statue and said, "This is Wu Lingmu, a powerhouse of the past." Yi Xian glanced at Wu Lingmu's statue and didn't say anything. At this moment, an old man appeared before the two and bowed slightly to Grand Empyrean. Grand Empyrean smiled. "I'm now the Sky Soul Temple Master." The old man smiled. "Grand Empyrean, you must be joking." As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. "This young master Yi Xian is the current Sky Soul Temple Master." Hearing this, Grand Empyrean's expression darkened. Martial Spirit City's target this time was Yi Xian? P.S. Scold me if you want, I also feel like I haven't been alone lately. Chapter 1942. The old man looked at Yi Xian with a smile. Yi Xian smiled. "So Martial Spirit City invited me?" The old man nodded. "Of course." Yi Xian smiled. "Then please lead the way." The old man bowed slightly and said, "Lord Yi, please follow me." With that he turned and left. Yi Xian and the Grand Heavenly Venerate followed. Along the way, the Grand Heavenly Venerate's expression was gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. Yi Xian said with a smile, "The Heaven Soul Hall left to look for me. The Martial Spirit City will definitely investigate it in secret. So, it is not unusual that they know about me." The Grand Heavenly Venerate nodded. "I know that, but I'm a little worried." Yi Xian looked into the distance. "Afraid that they will harm me?" The Grand Heavenly Venerate nodded. Yi Xian smiled. "Let's go take a look." The Grand Heavenly Venerate nodded. Soon the old man led Yi Xian and the Grand Heavenly Venerate to the Martial Spirit Hall. There were already 3 people sitting inside. An old man, a middle-aged man, and a very beautiful woman. The old man wore a gray robe and leaned back in his chair. His eyes were closed as though he was in deep thought. The middle-aged man wore a luxurious robe and had a faint smile on his face. He looked very approachable. When he saw Yi Xian and the Grand Heavenly Venerate, he immediately looked over and nodded with a smile. That woman, on the other hand, stunned Yi Xian a little. She was very beautiful, especially her long hair. Her long hair was not black but silver. Seeing Yi Xian and the Grand Heavenly Venerate enter, the woman glanced coldly at Yi Xian and did not speak. At that moment, the Grand Heavenly Venerate suddenly sent a Xianxia voice transmission. "That old man is the Great Wilderness North's old man of Great Wilderness. He reached destiny awareness millions of years ago and his strength is unfathomable. As for the middle-aged man, he is the Bitter God sect master, Ku Pu. He is a descendant of the Bitter God." A descendant of the Bitter God. Yi Xian glanced at the Ku Pu and felt a little surprised. Great Empyrean continued, "That woman is from the Great Snowy Mountain, her name is Xueling Long. She is the descendant of the once invincible Snowy Mountain King. Other than that eccentric Zong man, all the top experts of the burial domain are here." Just as Yi Xian was about to ask something, a woman walked in from outside. Everyone looked at the woman. She was wearing a fiery red dress and had a red whip wrapped around her right hand. The woman's appearance was not any worse than Xueling Long's. Her hair was tied into small braids and scattered behind her head. In addition to the way she was dressed, one look was enough to tell that she was not a good person. Yi Xian had already guessed the other party's identity. This woman should be Zhang Man. After Zhang Man entered the hall, she scanned the surroundings and her gaze finally landed on Yi Xian. You're the palace master of the Sky Soul Palace, Yi Xian? Yi Xian nodded and smiled. Yes. Zhang Man walked over to Yi Xian, sized up Yi Xian and then frowned slightly. Divine Physique Realm? Yi Xian nodded again. Yes. Zhang Man looked at Yi Xian. There are only two explanations for being able to become the palace master of the Sky Soul Palace while at the Divine Physique Realm. The first is that you're a hidden big shot. But I took a look and you're really only at the Divine Physique Realm. As soon as she finished speaking, she walked towards a seat at the side. Yi Xian was slightly curious. What's the second explanation? After Zhang Man sat down, she crossed her legs. You're a second generation that even the Sky Soul Palace wants to curry favor with. Yi Xian was speechless. Xue Linglong and Ku Pu glanced at Yi Xian but they didn't speak. Actually, they were very curious about Yi Xian's identity as well. This guy was only at the Divine Physique Realm, but he could become the palace master of the Sky Soul Palace. How could he be simple? At that moment Zhang Man said again, Palace Master Yi, let me ask you a question. You can answer or you cannot. Yi Xian was about to speak when Zhang Man asked directly. The Sky Soul Palace was suddenly annihilated. Not only did a few life-knowing realm powerhouses perish, but even the palace master was wiped out. This matter is related to the person behind you, right? Yi Xian glanced at Zhang Man. Damn it. Why are the people I meet now all so intelligent? Zhang Man smiled. I know. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Why don't you think that I did it? Hearing that, Ku Pu and Xue Linglong looked at Yi Xian again. Even the Great Desolation Elder opened his eyes and looked at Yi Xian. Zhang Man looked straight at Yi Xian. You did it. Yi Xian laughed. He walked to a nearby chair and sat down but he didn't speak anymore. Strength was very important in the outside world, but when one's strength wasn't enough, one had to act cool to make up for it. In any case, acting cool wasn't against the law. Zhang Man looked at Yi Xian and smiled. So, Palace Master Yi isn't at the Divine Physique Realm? Yi Xian looked at Zhang Man and smiled. Miss Man, you don't mind if I call you that, right? Zhang Man was about to speak when Yi Xian spoke first. Miss Man, I knew that you're a forthright person since I met you. Actually, I quite like your character because I, Yi Xian, am a forthright person as well. What I mean is, if you're very curious about me then we can talk in private. There are many people here now and it's not convenient for me to say many things. You understand, right? Zhang Man was stunned and then he laughed. Palace Master Yi, you're interesting, very interesting. Suddenly, a middle-aged man walked into the hall. Behind Yi Xian, the Grand Heavenly Venerate said, the current city governor of Martial Spirit City, Wu Qing. After Wu Qing entered the hall, he glanced at the crowd and said with a smile, Today, I have invited all of you here just as I said in the invitation. Our martial spiritual city has discovered a ruin left behind by an ascetic cultivator senior. However, Martial Spirit City is unable to open it, so I've gathered everyone here to think of a way. Zhang Man smiled. How do we split it if we open it? Everyone looked at Wu Qing when they heard that. Wu Qing smiled. We'll split it equally, of course. Of course, the prerequisite is that we can enter it. Split it equally. Zhang Man smiled and didn't speak. Meanwhile, Old Man Great Wilderness, who'd been silent all this time, suddenly said, City Governor Wu Qing, the authenticity of the ruin. Wu Qing smiled. Absolutely. Old Man Great Wilderness nodded slightly and didn't speak further. Meanwhile, Wu Qing said, I won't waste any more time. Everyone, let's head to the ruin. As he spoke, he opened his palm and swept it lightly. In an instant, a teleportation array appeared before them. Wu Qing didn't waste any time and entered the teleportation array before him. Everyone in the hall exchanged glances. Meanwhile, Zhang Man smiled. Does Martial Spirit City intend to harm us? As soon as she finished speaking, she entered as well. It didn't take long for Xue Linglong and the others to enter as well. Behind Yi Xian, the Grand Heavenly Venerate said solemnly, Temple Master, this matter isn't as simple as it seems. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he said, Return to Heaven Soul Temple and keep an eye on Martial Spirit City. As soon as he finished speaking, he entered the teleportation array. After a moment of silence, the Grand Heavenly Venerate turned around and left. 15 minutes later, Yi Xian and the others arrived at an unknown expanse of space, and they saw a hazy palace at the end of it. Wu Qing, who was in the lead, pointed at the palace. That palace is where the senior who once cultivated. Xueling Long and the others looked at Ku Pu. This fellow was a descendant of the bitter cultivator, so he should be the most familiar with the ruin. Ku Pu looked at the palace and after a moment he shook his head. I can't be sure because after the ancestor left, there are very few records of him even in my clan. Xueling Long said, we can't go over? Wu Qing smiled, we can't. There are 36 mysterious spacetimes blocking our way and each one is different. Some are even like a maze. As he spoke, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. It's too difficult. Spacetimes. Yi Xian's eyes lit up. Damn it. With the green profound sword and the mysterious spacetimes, what spacetimes couldn't he deal with? Of course he wasn't stupid enough to crack them. If he exposed the green profound sword and the mysterious spacetimes now, he would be courting death. Keep a low profile. If one's strength was weak, it was better to keep a low profile. Meanwhile, Xueling Long started walking towards the distance. She hadn't taken a few steps when the spacetime before her suddenly became illusory. She continued walking forward, and after around 15 minutes, her body suddenly became blurry. Zhongman and the others frowned when they witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, Xueling Long retreated with a slightly pale face, and she looked towards the distance, the 26th spacetime. It's very complicated and very powerful. Wu Qing nodded. Our martial spirit city stops at the 26th spacetime as well. When he spoke up to this point, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. Even if we crack the 26th spacetime, there are 10 even more powerful spacetimes behind it. The expressions of everyone here became solemn when they heard this. Meanwhile, Old Man Great Wilderness spoke abruptly. City Governor Wu invited Palace Lord Yi. I presume there's something extraordinary about him, right? All of them gazed at Yi Xian when they heard this. Yi Xian glanced at Old Man Great Wilderness and didn't speak. Wu Qing looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, Palace Lord Yi is no ordinary person. As far as I know, Palace Lord Yi has a sword in your hand. This sword seems to be able to restrain the spacetime doctrine, right? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. City Governor Wu, my sword is indeed able to counter some spacetimes. However, that's only against ordinary spacetimes. The spacetime here was left behind by Senior Kushio, so how could my sword possibly break through it? Wu Qing smiled. Why don't you give it a try? Yi Xian thought for a moment and then he nodded. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, he started walking towards the distance. However, he hadn't even arrived at the 26th spacetime when he stopped because he'd been obstructed by the 9th spacetime. The expressions of Wu Qing and the others instantly became quite unsightly when they witnessed this scene. Is this fellow really an idiot? Meanwhile, Yi Xian had retreated. His forehead was covered in sweat and his face was extremely pale. He seemed to be extremely weak. Yi Xian waved his hand repeatedly. It's too terrifying. I can't go in. I really can't. All of their expressions were quite unsightly. Damn it. I thought this fellow was a great god, but now it would seem like he's just an idiot. Meanwhile, Xueling Long gazed at Yi Xian. Is it because you can't go in or you don't want to? Their expressions changed slightly when they heard this. Is Yi Xian putting on an act? Even if you can't pass through the 20th spacetime, it shouldn't be to the extent where you can't even pass through the 9th spacetime, right? Yi Xian laughed bitterly. Miss Xueling Long, I'm only at the Divine Physique realm. Divine Physique realm. Everyone's expressions were quite unsightly. Damn it. Are you really only at the Divine Physique realm? Xueling Long fell silent for a moment and then she said, Young Master Yi, forgive me for being blunt, but if you're really only at the Divine Physique realm, then why did you come here? Don't you know that everyone here is at least at the Divine Physique realm? Moreover, it's Divine Physique realm. Yet you're only at the Divine Physique realm. What gave you the confidence to come here? Yi Xian fell silent for a moment and then he said, It was all of you who invited me here. Everyone looked at Wu Qing. Wu Qing fell silent for a moment and then he said, I'm sorry, young Master Yi. I really didn't know you were so weak. I always thought you were a big shot. Chapter 1943. Big shot. It wasn't just Wu Qing who thought that Yi Xian was a big shot. Even Xue Linglong and the others thought that Yi Xian was a big shot. How could a divine physique realm cultivator become the master of Heaven Soul Temple? It didn't make sense. Meanwhile, Manling spoke abruptly. Master Yi, didn't you just tell me that you were the one who caused the change in Heaven Soul Temple? Yi Xian spoke with slight helplessness. I was bragging. Manling gazed at Yi Xian for a long time before she gave him a thumbs up. You're amazing. Old Man Great Wilderness asked abruptly. Young Master Yi, why did the Grand Heavenly Venerate make you the master? Yi Xian replied. They wanted to find a puppet. Old Man Great Wilderness looked Yi Xian in the eye. Why? Yi Xian said. Didn't something happen in Heaven Soul Temple? They're afraid that the other party will come looking for trouble with them again. If the other party comes again, then they'll push me out to deal with it. Old Man Great Wilderness stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Who touched Heaven Soul Temple? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Old Man Great Wilderness intended to ask something else, but Yi Xian laughed bitterly. Seniors, I'm only at the Divine Physique Realm. What can I know? Divine Physique Realm. Everyone felt a headache coming on. Meanwhile, Wu Qing sighed softly. Young Master Yi, then you can go back. Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. He knew that place now, so wouldn't it be perfect if he came here secretly, entered the secret realm, and swept away all the divine items and crystals within it? Suddenly Zongman said, Wait. Yi Xian stopped and looked at Zongman. Zongman smiled. Young Master Yi, since you're already here, then stay. Yi Xian shook his head repeatedly. Miss Man, it's too dangerous for me to stay here. Besides, I can't help you at all. I'd better go back. After saying that, he was about to slip away, but at this moment, a mysterious pressure directly enveloped him. Yi Xian had a headache. He turned to look at Zongman. What is the meaning of this, Lady Man? Manlinger walked towards Yi Xian and said with a smile, You can stay here. Follow me. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? Manlinger blinked. If you want to leave, you have to defeat me. As long as you defeat me, you can leave at any time. Yi Xian was speechless. Right at this moment, Ku Pu suddenly said, Everyone, I have an idea. Everyone looked at Ku Pu, and Ku Pu said in a low voice, With our individual strength, it will be very difficult to break through the 26th space-time. Even if we could, we would not be willing, because that would be equivalent to using all our strength, and after using all our strength we would be extremely weak. Thus my suggestion is very simple. That is for everyone to work together to crack it. Even if we are weakened, we will all be weakened together. What do you think? Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. After a moment, everyone nodded, indicating that it was meaningless. Ku Pu smiled. Since it's meaningless, then let's begin. Saying that, he suddenly looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi Xian was about to speak when Zongman said with a smile, He will follow me. Ku Pu glanced at Zongman and said with a smile, As you wish. Manlinger looked at Yi Xian and the corners of her mouth lifted slightly. Her smile was somewhat strange. Yi Xian was somewhat speechless. Why was this woman pestering him? At this moment, everyone walked towards the space-time in the distance. Yi Xian naturally followed. Although the 26th space-time was very terrifying, under the joint efforts of Zongman, and the others, the 26th space-time started to be broken. After around half an hour, everyone passed through the 26th space-time and arrived at the 20th space-time. The 27th space-time was very strange. It seemed to be condensed from water. When everyone entered it, the entire space-time started to ripple. Wu Qing and the others' expressions changed drastically, because they noticed that the space-time pressure in this space-time had suddenly increased by tens of times. Yi Xian didn't enter, but his expression was extremely solemn at this moment, because he noticed that the space-time pressure in this space-time was extremely terrifying. It was absolutely enough to easily eliminate a destiny-knowing state expert. However, he was slightly surprised that Manlinger and the others had actually forcefully resisted the space-time pressure. That shocked Yi Xian. Although these fellows were destiny-knowing state experts, they were definitely not ordinary destiny-knowing state experts. At this moment, the expressions of Manlinger and the others changed drastically at practically the same time. Danger. Fatal danger. As destiny-knowing state experts, they could predict danger in advance. Without any hesitation, Manlinger and the others retreated madly and intended to leave that space-time. They were extremely swift, but they were still too late. That space-time suddenly transformed into an enormous vortex, and Manlinger and the others weren't even able to react before they were swept into it. Next to them, Zhou Xian was dumbfounded. Where were they swept to? At this moment, Zhou Xian was slightly hesitant because this place was quite strange. Even though he possessed the green profound sword and the mysterious space-time, his strength was strictly speaking inferior to Manlinger and the others. So, if someone really attacked him from the shadows, then it would be a huge pain in the ass for him. After a moment of silence, Zhou Xian withdrew the green profound sword and said, "Qing, bless me." As soon as he finished speaking, he started walking towards the distance. Damn it. What's there to be afraid of? Since I've already come here, how could I possibly turn back? I'll just do it. Zhou Xian hadn't noticed that a ray of light had flashed on the tip of the green profound sword as soon as he finished speaking. It was extremely swift, and even Zhou Xian hadn't noticed it. After Zhou Xian entered the mysterious spacetime, he opened his palm and the green profound sword shook slightly. In the next moment, the spacetime that seemed like water split apart. Zhou Xian laughed coldly and was about to continue forward. However, he suddenly turned around and saw a woman staring at him from afar. It was none other than Xue Linglong. At this moment, Xue Linglong's body was covered in a layer of icy cold energy, and it was exactly this icy cold energy that was protecting her. Xue Linglong just gazed at Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian was slightly embarrassed. "Miss Xue, you're here as well." Xue Linglong spoke in a low voice. "So, young Master Yi has concealed his strength." Zhou Xian thought for a moment and then he smiled. "Since you noticed, then I won't conceal it. To tell you the truth, I'm the #1 sword immortal in the world." Xue Linglong frowned slightly. "The #1 sword immortal in the world?" Zhou Xian smiled. "Yes, the #1 sword immortal in the world." Xue Linglong was speechless. Zhou Xian suddenly turned around and walked towards the distance. Meanwhile, Xue Linglong spoke abruptly, "Young Master Yi." Zhou Xian turned around to look at Xue Linglong and he smiled. "Miss Linglong, is something the matter?" Xue Linglong hesitated for a moment and then she said, "Young Master Yi, I'm unable to move. Can you take me with you?" Unable to move? Zhou Xian frowned slightly. He sized her up and then he smiled. "Miss Xue Linglong, I feel that it's quite inappropriate. Firstly, I don't have a good impression of you. Secondly, I'm going to search for treasures, so why should I take you with me?" Xue Linglong spoke in a low voice. "Young Master Yi, this is a trap." Zhou Xian frowned again. "A trap?" Xue Linglong nodded. "It's Wu Qing's trap. He used the uniqueness of this place to trap Manlinger and the others. His real target isn't the secret realm, but the Saint Veins and supreme grade crystal mines of our clans." Zhou Xian spoke in a low voice. "You're saying that this relic is fake?" Xue Linglong shook her head. "It's not fake. However, this place isn't something he can enter. The space-time ahead is getting stronger and stronger. Besides the 12 fate knowers, no one can enter it." Zhou Xian said, "The 12 fate knowers you mentioned are the ones who entered the fate knower realm before us?" Xue Linglong nodded. "Yes." Zhou Xian laughed and then he walked towards Xue Linglong. In an instant, the mysterious space-time pressure around Zhou Xian vanished without a trace. Xue Linglong's eyes were wide open and they were filled with disbelief. "This?" Zhou Xian smiled. "Miss Linglong, I'll open your eyes today. I'll let you know what a true expert is. Let's go." Then he turned around and walked into the distance. Xue Linglong hesitated for a bit and then quickly followed him. Just like that, Zhou Xian and Xue Linglong walked into the distance without any obstruction. Xue Linglong was dumbfounded. Who is this guy? He can ignore space-time. Just like that, Zhou Xian and Xue Linglong arrived at the palace. The palace wasn't big, but it had an ancient aura about it. One look and you could tell that it had a long history. Xue Linglong spoke in a low voice. "Young Master Yi." Zhou Xian smiled. "Miss Linglong wants to know why I can ignore space-time?" Xue Linglong nodded. Zhou Xian smiled. "Miss Linglong, do you think you're already at the top of this universe?" Xue Linglong said. "Young Master Yi, what do you mean?" Zhou Xian stretched out his right hand, smiled. "Miss Linglong, hold my hand. I'll show you." Xue Linglong glanced at Zhou Xian and hesitated. Is he trying to take advantage of me? But on second thought she felt that she was being too petty. How could such an expert have such filthy thoughts? Without thinking much, she stretched out her pure white jade and held Yi Xian's hand. The next moment the space-time around Yi Xian and her changed. Then, before Xue Linglong's astonished eyes, the two of them entered the mysterious space-time abyss. After entering, Xue Linglong's face changed. Fear. The mysterious space-time that Yi Xian brought her into was at least 100 times scarier than the 27th space-time. Xue Linglong couldn't help but tighten her grip on Yi Xian's hand. Because she knew that if Yi Xian let go of her hand, she would die in this mysterious space-time. Even the treasure she had might not be able to save her. At this moment, Yi Xian brought her out of that mysterious space-time. Yi Xian glanced at the shocked Xue Linglong and smiled. "Miss Linglong, what do you think?" Xue Linglong was silent for a while and said, "Yi Qianbei, what was that mysterious space-time?" Yi Xian blinked. "You want to understand that mysterious space-time?" Xue Linglong hesitated and nodded. Yi Xian smiled. "How about this? Be my disciple and I'll teach you." Disciple. Xue Linglong was stunned. Chapter 1944. Disciple? Xue Linglong's expression became slightly strange. Yi Xian smiled. "Are you unwilling?" Xue Linglong hesitated. Yi Xian smiled. "I won't force you." As he spoke, he pointed towards the distance. "Miss Linglong, let me send you out." Xue Linglong was stunned. "Aren't we going into the hall?" Yi Xian blinked. "Then go in." Xue Linglong was astounded. "What about you?" Yi Xian laughed and didn't speak. Xue Linglong understood. "Why should he take me in?" Xue Linglong remained silent for a while. "Senior, what do you like about me?" Yi Xian laughed. "I'm sorry, but I don't want to take you as my disciple anymore." As he spoke, he turned around and walked towards the hall. Xue Linglong was struck dumb. The next moment she followed him. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly stopped. He turned around and looked at Xue Linglong. He looked at her without saying anything, but his expression was a little cold. Xue Linglong was shocked. She knew that he was angry. Yi Xian smiled. "Don't follow me again. I'll only say this once." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the hall. On the spot, Xue Linglong's expression was slightly unsightly. In the distance, Yi Xian arrived at the entrance of the hall. He waved his sleeve and the door opened slowly and Yi Xian entered. The main hall was empty. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings. It was very dark in the hall, and there was a middle-aged man sitting cross-legged at the center of the hall. The middle-aged man wore a gray robe, and his long hair was draped over his shoulders. His hands were placed on his knees and he didn't have any aura. Cultivation. Yi Xian walked over to the middle-aged man, and after a moment of silence he bowed slightly. "Don't think about anything when you're here. Just bow first and you might get the inheritance." At this moment the middle-aged man suddenly raised his head. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched when he saw this. Life. But he quickly denied this thought. The middle-aged man before him didn't have any signs of life, so he had probably died. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian for a moment and smiled. To be able to ignore the space-time outside. "Young man, you are not simple." Yi Xian said softly. "Senior Ku Xiu?" The middle-aged man laughed. "I never thought that there would still be someone in this universe who remembers me." Yi Xian hurriedly bowed respectfully. "So it really is ascetic cultivator senior. Senior Ku Xiu created the primordial soul realm and opened up a martial path for us. How could the future generations dare to forget such merit? One of the rules of survival in the outside world. Flatter when you have nothing better to do. Who doesn't like to hear nice words?" Upon hearing what Yi Xian said, a smile appeared on Ku Xiu's face. "Little fellow, you're only at the divine body realm, yet you were able to make it this far. You must have used some external object, right?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Ascetic Xiu smiled and said, "Can I see?" Yi Xian opened his palm, and the Qingxian sword slowly floated in front of Ascetic Xiu. Ascetic Xiu reached out to hold the Qingxian sword. In the next moment his expression changed drastically as if he had seen a monster. Yi Xian looked at Ascetic Xiu and did not say anything. At this moment Ascetic Xiu's body suddenly trembled, and at the same time, a mysterious spacetime appeared around him. It was the mysterious spacetime inside the Qingxian sword. Seeing this, Yi Xian's expression changed instantly. This guy could activate the Qingxian sword? Soon he realized that it was not the other party who activated the Qingxian sword, but the other party discovered the mysterious spacetime inside the Qingxian sword and forcefully drew it out. It was drawn out, not stripped away. No matter how heaven-defying ascetic Xiu was, it was impossible for him to separate the Xianxian sword. Because this sword was forged by Qing'er. Even so, this was already heaven-defying. At this moment Yi Xian was shocked. Qing'er, his father, and his big brother were very strong, but besides the three of them, there were many other outstanding and powerful people in this world. Qing'er and the other two could look down on all the geniuses in this world, but Yi Xian could not. The strongest under the three swords. Thinking of this, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. His bragging was a bit too much. In front of Yi Xian, ascetic Xiu's expression changed constantly. At first he was pleasantly surprised, but soon he was deeply helpless, and finally he was at a loss. After a long time, ascetic Xiu slowly closed his eyes, and his smile was full of bitterness. Dao Monarch Mo left early, and there is an early traveler. Snow Mountain King, I lost. But you did not win either. His smile was full of bitterness. Beside him Yi Xian was silent. After a long time ascetic Xiu looked at Yi Xian. Where is the person who forged this sword? Yi Xian shook his head. I do not know. Ascetic Xiu's expression was gloomy. What a pity. Saying this, he seemed to have noticed something. He glanced at the tip of the azure profound sword, and the next moment he looked at Yi Xian and smiled. The person who forged this sword must have treated you well, right? Yi Xian's lips curled up. Yes. Ascetic Xiu looked at Yi Xian. I want to see her. Yi Xian shook his head. You'd better not. Ascetic Xiu smiled. He opened his palm and a black box appeared in his hand. He placed the box in front of Yi Xian. Everything I have is in this box. Yi Xian's heart was moved. Everything. How could the treasure of an expert of this level be an ordinary treasure? I'm rich. Yi Xian was ecstatic, but his expression was very calm. Senior, this. Ascetic Xiu smiled. I have already fallen. These things are meaningless to me. With that he paused and said, although I didn't manage to create a new realm back then, I gained a lot of understanding and innovation in the realm of destiny knowing. There are also some messy things that are all in this box. Yi Xian slightly bowed to ascetic Xiu. Thank you. Saying this, he hurriedly kept the box. Ascetic Xiu looked at Yi Xian. I want to see that senior. Yi Xian hesitated, then said. You can sense her with the sword. Ascetic Xiu smiled. All right. Yi Xian deeply bowed. Have a safe journey. Saying this, he walked out. At this time ascetic Xiu suddenly said. Young man. Yi Xian turned to ascetic Xiu. Ascetic Xiu smiled. Do you know how I died? Yi Xian was slightly stunned. Then he shook his head. I don't know. Ascetic Xiu was silent for a moment. Then he smiled. He was killed. Yi Xian frowned. Who killed you? King Shuaishan. Ascetic Xiu smiled and said nothing. Yi Xian wanted to ask more, but ascetic Xiu suddenly disappeared from the hall. Xue Linglong hurriedly walked over to Yi Xian when she saw him come out. She was just about to speak when an extremely terrifying aura suddenly erupted from within the hall in the next moment. That powerful aura was like 100,000 mountains crushing down. Suffocation. That was how Xue Linglong felt. Not only that, but she also felt fear from the bottom of her heart. Fear that came from the bottom of her heart. Xue Linglong looked into the hall. Her eyes were filled with fear. Ascetic Xiu, he is still alive. At this time Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm. He softly said, sword. As soon as he said this, a strand of sword light suddenly descended in a straight line from above the hall, and then it entered the hall. Boom. Instantly that terrifying aura disappeared without a trace. It was as if it was never there. At the same time, a sword flew out from the hall and landed in Yi Xian's hand. Xue Linglong looked at Yi Xian in fear. She was so shocked that she couldn't speak. Yi Xian sighed. It's a pity that you only have 70% of your strength. If you were at your peak you might be able to take one of my attacks. After saying that he walked into the distance. Xue Linglong felt like she was struck by lightning. Her mind went blank. Did Yi Xian just kill ascetic Xiu? Killed ascetic Xiu? In shock, Xue Linglong didn't realize that Yi Xian was walking softly. It was because of the terrifying aura that ascetic Xiu released. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly stopped. He turned around and looked at Xue Linglong. Miss Linglong, aren't you leaving? Hearing what Yi Xian said, Xue Linglong came back to her senses. She quickly walked to Yi Xian and said with a trembling voice, Qianbei, was that really ascetic Xiao? Yi Xian said with a smile. Can't you feel it? Xueling Long smiled bitterly. I always thought he was dead. I never thought that he was still alive. When Yi Xian said that ascetic Xiao was still alive, she didn't suspect anything. That powerful aura just now couldn't have been faked. What she was most shocked about was that ascetic Xiao was killed by this man in one move. Ascetic Xiao. Those were countless young prodigies. What she didn't understand was how Yi Xian could have such terrifying power. Moreover, she had never heard of him before. Yi Xian looked at Xueling Long and smiled. Miss Ling Long, you asked me why I took you in as my disciple. I can tell you now that I had some problems with my cultivation. After a period of time, my power will decrease. Xueling Long frowned. After a period of time, your power will decrease. Yi Xian nodded. My cultivation method is very special. Even if I told you, you might not understand. Xueling Long said, Qianbei, you mean that you will become weaker after a period of time, right? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Then he smiled bitterly. Just like now, my power will weaken. Xueling Long looked at Yi Xian and said, Then how long will it take for your power to recover? Yi Xian thought about it and said, 3 years. After 3 years, when I fight again, my power will decrease again. All these years I've been searching for a solution. Fortunately, I've found one, and that is to recultivate in adversity. I want to recultivate back to destiny awareness. At that time, even if my cultivation level drops, I'll still be destiny awareness. However, during this period, then he looked at Xueling Long. Do you understand what I mean? Xueling Long remained silent for a while and bowed deeply. I am willing to take you as my master. Yi Xian said with a smile. Don't force yourself. Xueling Long shook her head. It is my honor to be your disciple. Yi Xian laughed. Since you've acknowledged me as your master, I'll give you a gift for our first meeting. Then he pointed his finger and a storage ring flew in front of Xueling Long. Xueling Long took a look at the storage ring. There were 1 million Supreme Heaven Supreme crystals in it. 1 million. Xueling Long was dumbfounded. Although she was the owner of Snow Mountain, 1 million Supreme Heaven Supreme crystals was not a small amount to her. Why was Yi Xian so generous? Because there were over 100 million Supreme Heaven Supreme crystals in the box that Kuxiao gave him. Not only that, there were 6 holy veins and 39 supreme crystal mines. Chapter 1945. Apart from the 6 holy veins and 36 top-grade crystal ores, there was also hardship cultivation's inheritance in the box. Understanding of Destiny Realm. Although he hadn't created a new realm above the life-knowing realm, he had created 2 minor realms within the life-knowing realm, the awareness realm and the profound realm. What was awareness realm? To put it simply, it was to know danger. In other words, the original life-knowing state could predict danger, while the life-knowing state could predict danger in advance. It was like a person walking on a road. When he was about to reach a cliff, he could already foresee the danger even though he did not see the cliff. On the other hand, when he saw the road, he could already foresee that there was a cliff in front of him. There was a fundamental difference. The mysterious realm, on the other hand, was a little terrifying. It was different from the understanding realm. It was not used to avoid danger but purely a form of power. Mysterious realm. It was a new power created by hardship cultivation. After mastering it, one could easily shatter time and space. Currently, the highest time and space a Destiny Realm expert could touch was the 12th time and space. This mysterious realm could easily destroy this time and space. The origin of mysterious realm came from the universe. In hardship cultivation's words, cultivating mysterious realm was peaking at the power of the universe. This power wasn't something a Destiny Realm expert could resist. However, hardship cultivation didn't put mysterious realm above Destiny Realm. Instead, he classified it as Destiny Realm. As far as he was concerned, the profound realm was nothing more than a slightly more powerful life-knowing state. After understanding hardship cultivation's thoughts, Yi Xian couldn't help but sigh. He discovered that after reaching the life-knowing state, many experts in the world had already begun to walk their own paths. Just like Qing and the others. Of course, there was still a gap between hardship cultivation and Qing and the others. However, he knew that he was getting closer to Qing and the others. After a while, Yi Xian and Xueling Long left the relic. As soon as they left, they met a familiar person. Wu Qing. Yi Xian's face darkened when he saw Wu Qing. Damn it. I forgot about this guy. Wu Qing looked at Yi Xian and Xueling Long. You entered the relic? Yi Xian hurriedly shook his head. No, Wu Qing suddenly smiled and said, Young Master Yi, do you really think I'm stupid? Would the Heaven Soul Shrine really let a good-for-nothing become the Shrine Master? Of course, I didn't expect young Master Yi to be so terrifying that he could crack those powerful space-time. Yi Xian smiled and said, City Lord Wu Qing, do you know why I was able to break through those space-times? Wu Qing looked at Yi Xian. I really want to know. Yi Xian smiled and opened his palm. The green profound sword in his hand slowly floated in front of Wu Qing. Take a look at this sword and you'll understand. Wu Qing glanced at the green profound sword and frowned. This sword? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. As he spoke, he looked at Wu Qing. As long as this fellow touched the green profound sword, he was confident that he could send him into that mysterious space-time abyss. At this moment, Wu Qing stretched out his hand to grab the green profound sword, but just as he was about to touch it, he suddenly smiled and said, Young Master Yi, why did you suddenly show me this sword? Yi Xian squinted his eyes and with a thought, the green profound sword suddenly slashed out. Wu Qing on the other hand was prepared. The moment the sword was drawn, he had already retreated thousands of feet away. At the same time, 12 fate-knowing state cultivators appeared around Yi Xian and Xue Linglong. As the sword missed, Yi Xian did not strike again. He opened his palm and the green mystic sword returned to his hand. Wu Qing and Xue Linglong were not ordinary fate-knowing realm cultivators. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to kill them head-on. In the distance, Wu Qing smiled and said, Yi, Palace Master, you're making me more and more curious. Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, Wu Qing suddenly said, Kill. With that, the 12 fate-knowing state cultivators around Yi Xian charged at Yi Xian and Xue Linglong. At this moment, several powerful auras suddenly appeared around them. The next moment, Grand Heavenly Venerate and the others appeared before Yi Xian. Grand Heavenly Venerate said, Palace Master, you leave first. With that, he charged out. Yi Xian did not leave. He turned around and looked at Xue Linglong. Xue Linglong said, I have already informed the Great Snow Mountain. My people will be here in 15 minutes. Yi Xian nodded and looked at Wu Qing. Wu Qing smiled and said, Miss Linglong, it's too late. With that, a terrifying aura suddenly came from behind Xue Linglong. Xue Linglong narrowed her eyes and suddenly turned around. A snowflake suddenly surged out from her body. Sizzle, 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 sizzle. In an instant, the space in front of Xue Linglong was covered by snowflakes. At this moment, an old man had already rushed in front of her. Old Man Great Desolation. Yi Xian's face sank when he saw Old Man Great Desolation. Since Old Man Great Desolation is with Wu Qing, then what about Ku Pu and Zong Man? Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly raised his head. Wu Qing was already in front of him, and then a terrifying spatial pressure descended upon him and was about to crush him. Yi Xian's expression was calm, and he suddenly drew his sword and slashed down when Wu Qing arrived in front of him. 5,900 overlapped sword drawing techniques. Wu Qing was horrified when he swung his sword. Because he hadn't expected Yi Xian to be able to disregard the spatial pressure he'd exerted. What the hell is going on? He didn't have the time to thank Qianxi before he smashed his fist down. Bang! A wave of sword energy shattered, and then both Yi Xian and Wu Qing retreated explosively. Yi Xian retreated thousands of meters, but Wu Qing retreated less than 3 kilometers. Yi Xian had fallen into a disadvantageous position in this collision. Wu Qing's eyes were filled with shock. He was sure that Yi Xian hadn't concealed his cultivation after the previous 2 collisions, and Yi Xian was really at the divine physique realm. He hadn't imagined that a divine physique realm expert could actually be so formidable. After all, he wasn't an ordinary life-knower realm expert. Wu Qing took a deep and long glance at Yi Xian. He knew that Yi Xian's background was definitely not simple, but he couldn't be bothered about all of that. Yi Xian had entered the ruins, and it represented that Yi Xian had obtained the treasures of bitter cultivation. The treasures of bitter cultivation. After all, he'd obtained 6 saint veins and over 30 top-grade crystal ores all those years ago. Besides that, there might even be inheritances of bitter cultivation within them. Wu Qing slowly clenched his right fist when he thought up to here, and his eyes were filled with ghastly killing intent as he gazed at Yi Xian. He didn't waste his breath at all and he suddenly charged forward. As soon as he did, Yi Xian instantly felt a powerful force sweep towards him, and it felt like the sky was collapsing. A wisp of ferocity flashed through Yi Xian's eyes, and then he took a step forward and stabbed with his sword. The mysterious space-time pressure. He hadn't utilized the sword drawing technique, and he'd utilized the space-time pressure from the mysterious space-time instead. As soon as he stabbed with his sword, bang! The expanse of space-time in front of Yi Xian was directly obliterated, and the powerful force blasted Wu Qing back. However, he himself was instantly blasted back and he flew for an entire 30 kilometers. Wu Qing's expression was slightly unsightly after he stopped. His entire right arm had split open, and the ghastly white bones within were visible. Wu Qing raised his head to look at Yi Xian, and he was about to speak when a sword suddenly slashed towards him. Wu Qing suddenly smashed his left fist forward. Bang! The sword was forced to stop. In the distance, Yi Xian's expression was a bit ugly. The mysterious green sword hadn't been able to touch Wu Qing, and it had been forced to stop by Wu Qing's powerful force every time. If the mysterious green sword could touch Wu Qing, then he would be able to send Wu Qing into the space-time abyss. Unfortunately, Wu Qing seemed to be on guard and never let the mysterious green sword hit him. Yi Xian felt a headache coming on. Damn it! This enemy is a bit shrewd. He seemed to have thought of something and looked around. Soon, his expression sank because the Grand Empyrean and the others had been completely suppressed. If this continued, then the Grand Empyrean and the others would definitely lose. Once they lost, then Yi Xian would be gone as well. The Grand Empyrean had noticed this as well, so he didn't continue because he realized that he couldn't kill Yi Xian in a short period of time. This was a bit absurd. After all, he was a veteran at the life-knowing realm, but Yi Xian was only at the divine physique realm. There was a huge gap between their cultivation realms. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly looked at Old Man Great Desolation. Old Man Great Desolation was still fighting Xue Linglong. Both of them had entered the 12th layer of spacetime and were fighting intensely. Yi Xian wanted to lend the sword to Xue Linglong. Unfortunately, Xue Linglong wasn't a swordsman, so she wasn't able to utilize the mysterious green sword's power at all. Yi Xian seemed to have thought of something and frowned. Little soul, can you take other shapes? Little soul pondered for a moment and said, yes. Yi Xian was struck dumb. Then he said, you can shapeshift? Little soul replied, yes. However, its power isn't as strong as when it's a sword. If it takes other shapes, then its power is only around 80% of a sword's. Yi Xian smiled, that's enough. As he spoke, he gazed at Xue Linglong. Within the 12th layer of spacetime, Xue Linglong turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. A moment later, the mysterious green sword appeared in her grasp and then Yi Xian smiled, you can transform it into the weapon you desire. Xue Linglong glanced at Yi Xian and didn't think too much about it. She issued a command in her heart, and the mysterious green sword transformed into a crystalline and translucent snow lotus. In the next moment, the snow lotus suddenly split apart, and then countless snow lotus petals shot out like sharp blades. Bang! The expression of Old Man Great Desolation who just arrived in front of Xue Linglong instantly changed drastically, and he didn't hesitate to raise his arms to block and switch from offense to defense. Hiss. Everyone watched as Old Man Great Desolation's arms were slashed off. Moreover, he was even blasted over 30 kilometers away. At the same time, a snow lotus petal pierced through his left chest. Everyone was stunned when they witnessed this scene. Xue Linglong almost instantly killed Old Man Great Desolation. Wu Qing stared fixedly at Xue Linglong, and he didn't conceal the shock on his face at all. It wasn't just Wu Qing and the others, even Xue Linglong herself was slightly stunned. How could I have become so strong? That attack from before had almost instantly killed Old Man Great Desolation. After all, Old Man Great Desolation's strength wasn't inferior to hers at all. Yet she had almost instantly killed him. As if she had thought of something, she looked at the snow lotus in her hand. Then she looked at Yi Xian in the distance. Yi Xian smiled. This is a special divine sword that I forged for myself in the past. When my cultivation level recovers, I will give it to you. Once my cultivation recovers, I'll forge an exclusive weapon for you. With the exclusive weapon I forged for you, not only will you be invincible amongst your peers, but you'll also be able to kill those who are a few levels above you. Everyone was speechless. Meanwhile, Yi Xian seemed to have thought of something and he frowned. The mysterious green sword can transform into any shape. In other words, it can transform into armor as well? If it transforms into armor, then besides the 3 swords, who else can break through it? Am I going to be invincible? Chapter 1946. A sword forged by Zhou Xian? Everyone was extremely shocked when they had heard what Zhou Xian had said. Except for Grand Heavenly Venerables. Grand Heavenly Venerables looked at Zhou Xian with astonishment. Wasn't that sword forged by the woman in a plain dress? How did it become young Master Ye's doing? Of course, while he had this question in his mind, he wasn't stupid enough to voice it. If young Master Yi wanted to act cool, then they had to cooperate. As for Wu Qing, his face was a little ugly. He did not expect that after Zhou Xian gave Xuelinglong that sword, Xuelinglong's strength could actually reach such a level. She was simply invincible among the same rank. Most importantly, the sword was forged by Zhou Xian. And what Zhou Xian said about recovering his strength. In other words, Zhou Xian is really a big shot, but his cultivation hasn't recovered yet? Wu Qing felt his balls hurt, both of them. What kind of big shot did I offend? Meanwhile, Old Man Great Desolation suddenly looked at Zhou Xian. Who the hell are you? At this moment, there was a trace of fear in his eyes. His strength was actually a little higher than Xuelinglong's. Just now, when they fought, he already had a slight advantage over her. However, he did not expect Xuelinglong's strength to suddenly become so dreadful after Zhou Xian had given her that sword. It was like cheating. Freak. An external object could actually improve a person's strength to such an extent. Zhou Xian didn't answer Old Man Great Desolation. Instead, he looked at Xuelinglong and smiled. Linglong, what are you waiting for? Quickly kill them. Hearing Zhou Xian's words, Xuelinglong immediately returned to her senses. She wanted to make a move, but Old Man Great Desolation had already disappeared. Not only had Old Man Great Desolation disappeared, Wu Qing and the rest had also disappeared without a trace. They'd fled too quickly. Zhou Xian was stunned. Are they that spineless? Xuelinglong smiled bitterly. I wouldn't be able to do anything to them if they wanted to flee. Zhou Xian thought for a moment and nodded. Then forget it. Right, where are Zhong Manor and the others? Xuelinglong shook her head. I don't know. Zhou Xian said, look for them. Xuelinglong nodded. Meanwhile, 10 mysterious experts in white robes suddenly appeared behind Xuelinglong, and all of them were at the life-knowing realm. Obviously, they were experts from the Great Snow Mountain. The leader, a white-robed old man, bowed slightly to Xuelinglong. I came late, please punish me, Your Highness. Xuelinglong didn't pay any attention to the white-robed old man. She walked slowly towards Zhou Xian and passed the snow lotus transformed from the Qingxian sword to Zhou Xian. Actually, she was a little reluctant to part with it because this sword could transform into the Great Snow Mountain's sacred weapon. Furthermore, it was more than 10 times stronger than the Great Snow Mountain's sacred weapon. If she kept it in her possession, then very few in the world would be a match for her. Zhou Xian opened his palm and the snow lotus flew into Zhou Xian's palm. At the instant it entered his palm, the sword returned to its original form. He'd noticed the reluctance in Xuelinglong's eyes, but he naturally wouldn't give it to her. Xuelinglong hesitated for a moment and said, Master, do you have any other instructions? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present here was stunned. Master? Especially the experts behind Xuelinglong, their faces were covered in astonishment. Our queen actually took this young man as her master? Zhou Xian smiled. Take your people and follow me to the Heavenly Soul Shrine. Xuelinglong nodded. All right. Zhou Xian gazed at the Grand Heavenly Exalt. Let's go. A short moment later, all of them left. All along the way, all of them had strange expressions on their faces because they noticed that Xuelinglong was really too respectful to Zhou Xian. She'd really taken Zhou Xian to be her master. After they returned to the Heavenly Soul Shrine, Zhou Xian immediately entered into closed-door cultivation. Within the Xiaota, Zhou Xian's face was covered in a brilliant smile. He'd really profited greatly this time. 39 top-grade crystal ores. Coupled with his own, he had 42 in total. Besides that, he had 6 Saint Veins. Saint Veins. The Saint Veins didn't produce Supreme Saint Crystals. They produced Supreme Saint Crystals. A single Supreme Saint Crystal was equivalent to 10 top-grade heavenly crystals. Moreover, there were over 20 million Supreme Saint Crystals within the box that Kushio gave him. The lifetime savings of an extraordinary expert were in Zhou Xian's pockets. Now he didn't have to worry about money at all. Could be said that so long as he was willing. Green City Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian is untalented and unvirtuous. From this moment onward, Yi Xian is removed from the position of prince and will be succeeded by Yi Lang. The one speaking was an old man in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a young man with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling. She was Yi Xian's biological sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you remove him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid and did not dare to look at the Great Elder. However, she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting with his life on the line for the clan. We don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet the clan is using a groundless excuse to remove him from the position. This is unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. Whether he is removed or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder replied coldly, Then flog her 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now he is fighting with his life on the line for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. The right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. She only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince. Yi Lang nodded slightly. Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back. Understood? Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was torn and tattered and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian was like a ferocious tiger, leaping in front of him. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Ping. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged at Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, Your man? As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked up to Yi Ling. Seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed out. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. "Why?" At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you discard him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, what are you interrupting? Leave." Yi Ling was obviously afraid and did not dare to look at the great elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and entered the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides. "Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he discards his position or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder replied coldly, "Then flog her 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years and even now he is fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard laughed coldly. "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the prince's position and it's everyone's wish. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply. "This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death." Yi Lang nodded slightly. "Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show mercy, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to see something and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe and the robe was tattered and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes and his face darkened. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Ping. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there and charged towards Zhang Mu once more. At this time Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me." Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Chapter 1947. Danger. Looking at Yi Xian in front of her, Gucho was filled with curiosity. With his current strength, there were very few things in this world that could make him feel danger. And it wasn't just ordinary danger, it was death. Afraid? He wasn't afraid. But he didn't dare to take the risk because he was the hope of the entire race. At this moment, Yi Xian was facing a great enemy. He knew that this person felt Qing'er's karma through him. Xue Linglong suddenly said, "Master, you can't agree to it." Yi Xian looked at Xue Linglong and smiled. "Why?" Xue Linglong said solemnly, "If we let them out, there will be endless trouble." Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, Gucho smiled. "Miss Xue Linglong, back then you had 12 fated saints as well as Snow Mountain King and Kushio, 2 super experts. What about now?" Xue Linglong stared at Gucho. "That's why we can't let you out." Gucho smiled and looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. "I want to go with you to see your seal." Gucho smiled. "Okay." Xue Linglong panicked. She still wanted to say something, but Yi Xian sighed softly. "Girl, you have to understand one thing. The entire evil clan is now sealed, but he can come out. What does this mean? Think about it." Hearing this, Xue Linglong's face turned pale. Under Gu Chao's lead, everyone came to a plain. This plain seemed to be boundless and they couldn't see the end of it. Gucho led Yi Xian and the others into the distance. "Young Master Yi, do you know that this is where King Shueshan and the others fought my ancestor?" He looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, do you know why there are no records of that period in the burial zone? Many people don't even know about our evil race." Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he said, "History is written by the victors and there are no records of that year." Obviously, it was the victors who erased that period of history. There was a strange look in Gu Chao's eyes. Young Master Yi is truly intelligent. Does young Master Yi know why they wanted to erase that part of history? Yi Xian shook his head. Ancient Sorrow smiled. "Because of resources." Yi Xian said, "I heard that your evil race wanted to dominate the entire burial zone and monopolize all the resources in the burial zone, so they rebelled." Gu Chou suddenly laughed. "Young Master Yi, did Miss Linglong tell you this?" Yi Xian nodded. Xue Linglong said coldly, "Isn't that the case?" Gu Chou shook her head and smiled. "Interesting. Of course it's normal. Since ancient times, who on the losing side has not been corrupted?" Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Are you saying that there are other reasons?" Gu Chou smiled. "Actually, we have to start from King Shueshan." Yi Xian frowned. "King Shueshan?" Gu Chou nodded. "Even I have to admit that he is a terrifying genius." Saying this, he looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, you should know that when we cultivate, besides our own talent and hard work, there's something else we can't lack, and that's money." Yi Xian nodded. Gu Chou continued, "For a genius like King Shueshan to cultivate, how terrifying are the resources he needs. And at that time our evil race was the richest in the entire burial zone." Hearing this, Yi Xian's face changed. At this moment Xue Linglong said angrily, "You're talking nonsense. It's your evil race that wants to monopolize the resources of the burial zone, but you still want to bite back." Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as crown prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. And on both sides were the Yi clan's elders. "Why?" At this moment, a timid voice suddenly sounded in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, Yi Xian's sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Zhou Xian, she rushed over despite her illness. The black-robed old man frowned. Yiling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yiling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Zhou Xian is a crown prince. Why did you discard him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yiling coldly. This is a matter of the clan, what are you interrupting? Leave. Yiling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead she plucked up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He's fighting for the clan and we don't know if he's dead or alive. But now the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. Discard him or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this moment the new crown prince Yilang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder said coldly, then flog 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yiling clenched her fists and said angrily, this is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years and even now he's fighting for the clan, but the clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yilang, and he knew that his chance to show off had come. The guard sneered, Young Master Yilang inherits the position of crown prince and it's everyone's wish. What are you shouting for? As he spoke he raised his hand and slapped Yiling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded and the right side of Yiling's face instantly turned red and swollen, but she did not cry. She just held her cheek tightly. Yilang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. I'm Zhang Mu, greeting the crown prince. Yilang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the crown prince I'll need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply. I'll go through fire and water for the crown prince and I'll do anything for you. Yilang nodded slightly. Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall, so don't hold back. Do you understand? Zhang Mu glanced at Yilang and when he saw the murderous intent in Yilang's eyes, he understood. Immediately he grabbed Yiling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something and he suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was torn and there was blood everywhere. This person was Zhou Xian who had rushed back from the South Mountain. Seeing Zhou Xian, Yilang's lips curled into a cold smile. Inside the ancestral hall the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes and his expression was frighteningly dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Zhou Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yiling, his expression turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Zhou Xian his expression changed. He hurriedly looked at Yilang and just as he was about to speak, Zhou Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Zhou Xian's fist landed on his face. Ping. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yiling did not stop there. He charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time Yilang suddenly roared, Zhou Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Zhou Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yilang's expression turned ugly. Zhou Xian looked up at him and said, Your man? As he spoke he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, Prince, save me. Zhou Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yiling's side. Seeing Yiling's appearance, Zhou Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yiling saw Zhou Xian her tears flowed out. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Zhou Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Ping. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Zhou Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on Zhou Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yilang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yilang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a hint of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yiling and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yiling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yiling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, "Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you discard him for no reason?" The Great Elder looked at Yiling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, why are you interrupting? Leave." Yiling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead she plucked up her courage and entered the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides. "Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He's fighting for the clan and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet the clan is using groundless excuses to discard his position. This is unfair." Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. "Whether he discards his position or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time the new prince Yilang suddenly laughed. "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The Great Elder replied coldly, "Then flog her 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yiling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now he's fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yilang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yilang inherits the prince's position. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke he raised his hand and slapped Yiling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded and the right side of Yiling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry. She only covered her cheek tightly. Yilang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the crown prince." Yilang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince I'll need 10 guards. You'll be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He quickly bowed deeply. "This subordinate will go through fire and water for the prince." Yilang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back. Do you understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yilang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yilang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yiling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside the hall. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yilang's lips curled into a cold smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes, his expression dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yiling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yilang and was about to speak. At this time Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Ping. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yiling did not stop there. He charged at Zhang Mu again. At this time Yilang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yilang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me." Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked up to Yiling. Seeing Yiling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yiling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Ping. Chapter 1948. Meanwhile Gucho smiled. "Young Master Yi, so long as you nod, everything in this spatial ring will be yours." Yi Xian didn't agree. If he agreed to Gu Chao's request, it would be equivalent to becoming enemies with the 10 destined saints. Although this fellow was very strong, Mokiki was only the weakest. In other words, Mokiki was the weakest. There were 10 more. Most importantly, there was still the invincible Snow Mountain King, a fellow that the evil clan couldn't defeat even with their entire clan's strength. This was a terrifying vortex. But he knew that if he refused, he couldn't guarantee that Gu Chou wouldn't be strong. With his current strength, it was absolutely impossible for him to resist Gu Chou. This fellow was freakishly strong as well. Xian felt a headache coming on. Meanwhile, Gu Chou said, I understand young Master Ye's feelings and I know what young Master Yi is thinking. To be honest, I need to borrow the sword in young Master Ye's hand. If young Master Yi refuses, then I will use other methods because I have no other choice. Xian said solemnly, You're so strong, so why do you still need my sword? Gu Chou smiled lightly. Because the sword in your hand is the nemesis of space-time. As he spoke, he pointed at the layer that Mokiki was on. Although I killed Mokiki, I didn't destroy the space-time in this layer. These space-time formations weren't particularly strong in the beginning, but they've been constantly strengthening over the countless years. Of course, I can also destroy the space-time formations in this layer, but it'll consume a lot of energy for me. For now, I can't consume too much energy because there are still 10 destined saints above. Xian fell silent. The Grand Heavenly Venerate said solemnly, Temple Master, think twice. Xian smiled bitterly. He naturally knew that he had to think twice. Gu Chou was very strong, but were the remaining 10 destined saints weak? Especially the invincible Snow Mountain King. If he helped Gu Chou, it would be equivalent to becoming enemies with the 10 destined saints. But if he didn't help, Gu Chou would definitely use other means. As if thinking of something, Xian handed the Cyan Profound Sword to Gu Chou. This sword was forged by my sister. Why don't you hold it and sense my sister, then you can talk to her. Gu Chou looked at Xian. After a moment he shook his head and smiled. No. Xian was speechless. Gu Chou smiled and said, Young Master Yi, I will only talk to you. Xian said solemnly, As long as my sister agrees, I'll help you immediately. Gu Chou looked at Xian. Young Master Yi, I am a destiny-knowing realm expert. Not only am I a destiny-knowing realm expert, but I am also a god astrologer. Being a god astrologer is an ancient profession in my clan. It can calculate future blessings and misfortunes. When young Master Yi gave me the sword to find your sister, I once again felt danger. Therefore I used the god astrology technique to calculate 1,900 times. Do you know what the results were? As he spoke, he smiled. Every result was death. After calculating 1,900 times, there was no chance of survival. At this point he paused and said, Young Master Yi wants to dig a hole for me to jump into. Of course I understand, but young Master Yi, I won't jump into this hole. Why don't you change your method? Xian, on the side, Grand Empyrean said, Since you can feel this, why do you still want to drag my temple master into this? There was a flash of apology in Gu Chou's eyes. I'm sorry. I have no intention of dragging young Master Yi into this, but I have no choice. My clan has been suppressed for countless years. I am the hope of my clan. As long as I can save them, no matter the method, even if I die, I will do it. Xian said in a deep voice, Do you know that if I help you, I will be the enemy of the 10 destined knowing saints? Gu Chou smiled. Young Master Yi doesn't need to become enemies with them. You just need to lend me your sword. I will deal with them myself. On the side, Shui Linglong suddenly pulled Xian. Her eyes were filled with pleading. She knew how terrifying the sword in Xian's hand was. If this sword fell into Gu Chou's hand, the power it could display would be unimaginable. At this moment, Gu Chou suddenly said, Young Master Yi, how about we make a bet? If I lose, I won't borrow your sword anymore. But if you lose, you must lend me your sword. When he spoke up to this point, he paused for a moment and said, You can't call for help. Xian smiled and said, You're so much stronger than me, so do you think it's fair to make a bet with me? Gu Chou grinned. There's no such thing as fairness in this world. Xian thought for a moment and said, We can make a bet. But I decide how to do it. Gu Chou nodded. All right. Xian smiled and said, It's very simple. I'll take you into a mysterious space. I'll lose if you're able to come out from there. What do you think? Gu Chou thought for a moment and nodded. All right. Xian suddenly touched Gu Chou lightly with the green profound sword. and then both of them entered the mysterious space-time abyss. Gu Chao's expression instantly changed when he entered that mysterious space-time. There was a trace of seriousness in his eyes. Yi Xian smiled and said, "You can begin." As soon as he finished speaking, he left the space-time abyss. Within the space-time abyss, Gu Chou fell ceaselessly. But he was just falling, and the space-time energy within was actually unable to harm him. Yi Xian's expression became serious when he saw this scene. Right at this moment, Gu Chou slowly opened his right hand. In the next moment, the space-time abyss started to boil. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. This Gu Chou actually wants to forcefully break through this space-time abyss. Gradually, the mysterious space-time abyss surged violently like boiling water. But it didn't break through. At this moment, Gu Chou opened his palm, and the silver thread in his hand suddenly flew out. A sharp tearing sound resounded from within the space-time abyss. However, the silver thread was still unable to tear open the mysterious space-time abyss. But it was able to deform the mysterious space-time abyss. Just when Yi Xian thought that Gu Chou would attack again, Gu Chou suddenly looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, I lost." He admitted defeat. With a thought from Yi Xian, the mysterious space-time abyss vanished. Gu Chou walked over to Yi Xian and praised. The mysterious space-time that young Master Yi executed just now was truly incomparably profound. "I've learned something new," Yi Xian said with a smile. "You will keep your promise, won't you?" Gu Chou nodded. "Of course. Young Master Yi can leave at any time." Yi Xian glanced at Gu Chou and then he turned around and left. Meanwhile, Gu Chou suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, I want to invite you to my clan as a guest. Even if you don't want to, it's fine if you don't want to." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Then I'll go take a look." Gu Chou smiled. "Please." Yi Xian suddenly pointed at the tower. "Patriarch Gu Chou, why haven't they come out to stop you?" Gu Chou smiled. "They are cultivating inside. Unless I disturb them, they won't care about what happens outside. Of course, the premise is that I don't break those space-time formations." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." Gu Chou said, "Let's go." After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked down the tower. At the bottom of the tower there was a very small entrance. Gu Chou brought Yi Xian into the entrance. Grand Empyrean and Xue Linglong didn't go down because the entire surface was covered by a powerful space-time formation. With Gu Chou's strength, he could only barely bring Yi Xian down. After entering the ground, the two of them walked down the stone steps. The lower they went, the darker it became. Half an hour later, everything in front of Yi Xian was pitch black. Not only that, but he also felt countless space-time forces around him. Gu Chou softly said, "This passage was opened by my evil clan's ancestors with their blood." Yi Xian didn't speak. He didn't want to comment on the past because he, Yi Xian, was not a good person. About an hour later, Yi Xian suddenly saw a fire. He carefully looked at the opposite side and saw a city not far away. Although there was a fire, it was still very dark deep underground. At this moment, someone on the city wall shouted, "The Patriarch is back! The Patriarch is back!" The moment he said this, the city began to boil and countless evil clan members rushed out. Gu Chou faintly smiled and walked toward the city. In the distance, countless evil clan members slowly knelt down and kept shouting, "Patriarch!" At this moment, Gu Chou turned to look at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, let's enter the city." Yi Xian nodded and then walked to Gu Chou's side. The two of them walked toward the city. After entering the city, Yi Xian found that there were many evil clan members in the city. Most importantly, their auras were very terrifying. How terrifying were they? Walking from the city gate, he found that most of the people were actually in the life chart realm. There were also many life body and life soul realm experts. There were also many primordial soul realm experts. At a glance, there were at least hundreds of people in the primordial soul realm. What kind of terrifying race was this? Yi Xian was shocked. Gu Chou brought Yi Xian to a large hall. Just as they entered the hall, two old men quietly appeared in front of Gu Chou. The two old men bowed deeply to Gu Chou and then retreated to the side. Yi Xian glanced at the two old men. Unfathomable. This was the feeling that the two old men gave him. Gu Chou suddenly sat to the side and then looked at Yi Xian. He smiled and said, "Young Master Yi, please sit." Yi Xian sat opposite Gu Chou. Gu Chou smiled and said, "My clan has not seen the sun for countless years. And because we are suppressed here, my clan cannot marry with other clans." At most in 100 years, my clan will have to marry with close relatives. At that time my clan will die without them doing anything. Xian was silent. Guqiu continued, I do not want young Master Yi to be involved in this maelstrom, nor do I want young Master Yi to help my evil clan, nor do I want to take the divine sword in young Master Ye's hand. I only have one goal, and that is to let young Master Yi know the truth of this history. As he said this, he opened his palm and gently swept it behind him. In an instant, a huge screen suddenly appeared in front of Xian. In that huge screen Xian saw a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man had long hair and his hands were behind his back. He stood there like the ruler of this world, giving people a feeling that they could not look up to him. Xian had already guessed the other's identity. This middle-aged man in front of him was the invincible Snow Mountain King of the past. Behind the King of Snow Mountain, there were 11 other people. Xian also recognized one of them. It was Hardship Xiu, who stood to the left of the King of Snow Mountain. Opposite the King of Snow Mountain stood an old man. The old man glared at the King of Snow Mountain. King of Snow Mountain, my evil clan has no enmity with you. Why are you targeting my evil clan? The King of Snow Mountain looked calm. I have my eyes on all the resources of your evil clan. If you don't give it to me, I'll snatch it from you. It's that simple. Chapter 1949. Snatch. Hearing King Xueshan's words, Xian sighed in his heart. This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. At this time, Guqiu gently waved his right hand, and the screen disappeared without a trace. Xian looked at Guqiu. I know the truth, but there's no point, right? Guqiu shook his head. There is. Xian was a little curious. What is the point? Guqiu smiled slightly but did not say anything. He opened his palm and a storage ring slowly floated in front of Xian. It was Emo Keki's storage ring. Xian said with a smile, What do you mean? Guqiu smiled, I'm giving it to young Master Yi to sow good karma. Xian shook his head, No need. Guqiu still wanted to say something but Xian suddenly said, Patriarch Guqiu, I have no enmity with your evil tribe. If you don't find trouble with me, I won't provoke you. On the contrary, Saint Ten Lives knowing is the same. If they don't provoke me, I won't be enemies with them. Guqiu nodded slightly. I understand young Master Ye's meaning. Xian smiled. Patriarch Guqiu, farewell. With that he got up and left. His attitude was simple. He did not want to be involved in this whirlpool. In any case, he couldn't beat either side. Leaving quickly was the best plan. Guqiu was about to send Xian off, but Xian hurriedly said, Patriarch Guqiu, you don't need to send me off. Guqiu smiled. It's fine, I just want to chat with young Master Yi. Xian was speechless. The two walked on the street. On both sides, when the evil tribe saw Guqiu, they all stopped and then knelt down. That kind of respect came from the heart. It could be seen that Guqiu was very popular among the evil tribe. When they walked out of the city, Guqiu stopped and looked at Xian. Young Master Yi, take care. Xian cupped his fists. See you again. With that he turned around and left. Guqiu just looked at Xian. No one knew what she was thinking. Meanwhile, a woman in black armor appeared by Guqiu's side, and she gazed at Xian and spoke softly. The patriarch has tried to kill him at least 10 times, but he gave up every single time. Guqiu opened his palm. In his palm there was a string of prayer beads. He gently rotated the prayer beads. From the moment I left the hall until now, every time I wanted to kill him, I would calculate the consequences. Do you know the result? The black-armored woman shook her head. Guqiu chuckled and said, The result every time is death. The black-armored woman's pupils suddenly shrank. How is that possible? In this world, with your strength, only the Snow Mountain King can fight against you, and this person is only at the divine physique echelon. Guqiu shook her head. He is indeed only at the divine body realm, but he has an extremely terrifying karma with him. I can't calculate the cause and effect, but I know that if I kill him, it will bring disaster to me and my clan. The black-armored woman was somewhat in disbelief. Patriarch, are you saying that he has someone behind him? Guqiu laughed. Yes. The black-armored woman said in a low voice. Then does the patriarch want to kill him? Guqiu shook his head. No. The black-armored woman asked. Is it because he has someone behind him? Guqiu laughed. Did you see the sword in his hand just now? If I had that sword, not only could I easily break the space-time formation set up by the 12 saints, I could also use it to resist the overgod weapon of the Snow Mountain King. A fierce look flashed through the black-armored woman's eyes. I'll go kill him. Gu Chou shook his head and laughed. This time our clan will definitely have a battle with the Snow Mountain King and the others. I estimate that our clan has a 40% chance of victory. But to kill him, I don't even have a 10% chance of victory. The black-armored woman, Gu Chouqingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestor Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From this moment onwards, Yi Xian is deposed from his position as crown prince. Yilang will succeed him. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind him there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yilang. On both sides there were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yiling and she was Yi Xian's sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to depose Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yiling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yiling bowed to the people in the hall and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a crown prince. Why did you depose him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yiling coldly. This is a matter of the clan, why are you interrupting? Leave. Yiling was obviously afraid and she didn't dare to look at the Great Elder, but she didn't leave. Instead she mustered up her courage and walked into the hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan for the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan and we don't know if he is dead or alive. But the clan is using a groundless excuse to depose him from his position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly said angrily, It's not up to a little girl like you to decide whether to depose him or not. Men, drag her away. At this time the new crown prince Yilang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder said coldly, Then flog 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yiling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years and even now he is fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yilang, and he knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard smiled coldly. Young Master Yilang inherits the position of crown prince and it is everyone's wish. What are you yelling about? As he spoke he raised his hand and slapped Yiling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded and the right side of Yiling's face instantly turned red and swollen, but she didn't cry. She just held her cheek tightly. Yilang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the crown prince. Yilang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the crown prince I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate will go through fire and water for the crown prince and I will risk my life for him. Yilang nodded slightly. Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back, understand? Zhang Mu glanced at Yilang and when he saw the murderous intent in Yilang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yiling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to see something and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe and the robe was tattered and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yilang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes, and his expression was frighteningly gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yiling, his expression turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian his expression changed. He hurriedly looked at Yilang and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Ping. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yiling did not stop there and charged towards Zhang Mu once more. At this time Yilang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Ooh. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's expression turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu, who was crying for help, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage, and in the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be removed, and Yi Lang shall take over. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides there were the Yi clan elders. "Why?" At this time a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you remove him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, why are you interrupting? Leave." Yi Ling was obviously afraid and did not dare to look directly at the great elder. However, she did not leave, and instead mustered her courage to enter the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. "Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and it is unknown whether he is dead or alive. Yet the clan is using a groundless excuse to remove him from the prince position. This is unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he is removed or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder replied coldly, "Then do it 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now he is fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang is the prince, and it is everyone's wish. What are you shouting about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I will need 10 guards. From now on you will be my guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply. "This subordinate will go through fire and water for the prince, and I will do anything for you." Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Do not show mercy, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. Immediately he grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his expression was frighteningly gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his expression turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his expression changed. He hurriedly looked at Yilang and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yiling did not stop there and charged towards Zhang Mu once more. At this time Yilang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yilang's expression turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yiling's side. Seeing Yiling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yiling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Chapter 1950. As far as he could remember, the only person who could disregard Qing and his dad was Tian Yi, the man whose grave was covered in weeds. Tian Yi. Mu Mo frowned slightly. "Who is he?" Yi Xian laughed heartily. "You're right, senior. Everyone should be responsible for saving the universe. However, senior, the saint bloodline. Haha, I don't mean anything else. You know what I mean." Mu Mo's smile reappeared on his face. "What a greedy little fellow. But it doesn't matter. How about this, I'll give you 2 saint bloodlines and 30 supreme-grade crystal mines." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "All right." He stretched out his left hand as he spoke. Mu Mo's smile grew even brighter, and a spatial ring appeared in front of Yi Xian with a tap of his finger. Yi Xian glanced at it and it just so happened that there were 2 saint bloodlines and 30 supreme-grade crystal mines. Yi Xian put the spatial ring away, and then he reluctantly passed the green profound sword in his hand to Mu Mo. Mu Mo didn't hesitate at all and picked up the sword. The instant he did, something unexpected happened. Without a sound, Mu Mo directly entered an endless space-time abyss. Mu Mo's expression changed drastically, and he looked at Yi Xian furiously. "You're courting death." With that, he suddenly pressed his right hand down. Boom! The entire space-time abyss trembled, but the powerful force wasn't able to shatter it. Mu Mo was shocked when he saw this. He couldn't be bothered to be angry and he hurriedly tried a few more methods, but no matter what he did, it didn't work. At this moment, Mu Mo's eyes were filled with shock. What kind of space-time is this? Yi Xian looked at Mu Mo in the space-time abyss. "If you want to come out, then give me your spatial ring. Don't play tricks, I know how many treasures you have." Mu Mo flew into a rage. "Are you threatening me?" Yi Xian frowned. "I'm definitely threatening you. Why would you ask such a stupid question?" Mu Mo. Yi Xian shrugged. "Anyway, I'm not in a hurry. You can think about it slowly. However, I have to remind you that you don't have much time." Mu Mo stared fixedly at Yi Xian and then he clenched his fists tightly. In an instant his entire body boiled, and the powerful and mysterious space-time abyss rippled like water. Yi Xian glanced at Mu Mo. He had to admit that this old fellow still had some skills. Although Mu Mo wasn't as abnormal as Gucho, he was still able to shake the mysterious space-time abyss. At the very least, he definitely couldn't beat him now. Meanwhile, Mu Mo's body had started to collapse bit by bit. Sensing this scene, Mu Mo's expression instantly changed. He didn't expect that his body couldn't withstand this mysterious space-time abyss. Without thinking too much, he looked at Yi Xian. "You actually colluded with the evil races." Yi Xian smiled. "Old man, let me remind you again. At your current speed, your body will dissipate in an hour at most. Not only will your body dissipate, but your soul will also suffer heavy injuries. At that time, even if you come out, your strength will greatly decrease." Mu Mo stared at Yi Xian. "Let me out first." Yi Xian shook his head. "I can't beat you. After I come out, will you give me your treasure?" Mu Mo said fiercely. "If I give you my treasure, will you let me out?" Yi Xian smiled. "Old man, look carefully, I am a swordsman. I, the great Yi who, great sword immortal Yi, would do something that goes back on his word?" "Swordsman." Mu Mo's expression was somewhat ugly. Yi Xian said again, "If you still don't believe me, I can swear on my father's name. If I go back on my word, then let my father be hacked to death." Mu Mo glanced coldly at Yi Xian. Swear on your own name. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, if I go back on my word, then let 10,000 swords pierce through my heart and I'll never be able to reincarnate. Although he wasn't the strongest under the 3 swords, only the 3 swords could kill him with a sword. Who were the 3 swords? One was his sister, one was his father, and one was his big brother. Muemo stared fixedly at Yi Xian. He wanted to say something else, but Yi Xian suddenly flared up. Don't push your luck. If worse comes to worst, I won't take anything. Muemo was silent for a moment before he opened his palm, and a spatial ring appeared in his hand. There were a total of 47 holy veins and hundreds of top-grade crystal ores within the spatial ring. Muemo looked at Yi Xian. Take it. Yi Xian glanced at Muemo. With a command in his heart, the spatial ring slowly floated out from the space-time abyss. Yi Xian put the spatial ring away and then he turned around and left. Muemo roared furiously within the space-time abyss. Kid, are you going to go back on your word? Yi Xian turned around and glanced at Muemo. Yes. Muemo's expression was ferocious. You swore. Yi Xian nodded. It's fine. Let 10,000 swords pierce through my heart and I'll die. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and vanished into the horizon. Muemo was stunned. In the next moment he roared furiously. Shameless swordsman. How dare you go back on your word? His voice rumbled like thunder and reverberated through the sky. However, Yi Xian didn't even pay attention to him as he vanished into the horizon. Muemo felt his body gradually vanish. At this moment he was finally slightly afraid. Because at this moment he understood that if he continued like this, he would die. After trying countless more times, Muemo gave up. He gazed at the tower in the distance and roared furiously. The evil tribe hasn't been eliminated. At this moment, a voice resounded from the 3rd level. Muemo, it was your greed that caused you to fall into a hopeless situation. Why are you blaming us? Muemo's expression was slightly unsightly. Are all of you really going to leave me to die? A short while later, an afterimage suddenly flew out from the 3rd level. The afterimage actually forcefully entered the mysterious space-time abyss. The afterimage didn't break through the space-time abyss. Instead, it merged with Muemo's body gradually became illusory, and a moment later he transformed into specks of starlight and vanished. Meanwhile, a person appeared at the foot of the tower. It was Muemo. However, the mysterious space-time abyss was still there. Muemo heaved a heavy sigh of relief, and his eyes were filled with ferocity as he gazed into the distance. Meanwhile, the voice resounded again. Muemo, why did you have to be so stupid? Who is that Gucho? Even he gave up on that young man's divine sword. Why did you overestimate yourself and try to steal his sword? Muemo fell silent and his expression gradually calmed down. A short while later he gazed into the distance. Wulingmu, who the hell is he? The voice replied, I don't know. Muemo's expression was somewhat unsightly. Wulingmu, that sword in that person's hand is really terrifying. If it falls into Gu Chao's hands, it will be very disadvantageous for us. Wulingmu said, King Xueshan will deal with this matter. You should return to the tower. Muemo shook his head. This person's strength is actually very low, but that sword is special. As long as I don't let that sword touch me, he can't do anything to me. After saying that, he disappeared on the spot. He didn't want to give up. If Yi Xian hadn't taken away his treasures, he might have given up. However, Yi Xian had taken away all his cultivation resources. If he didn't take them back, how could he cultivate dozens of saint veins? Moreover, he was very angry, because Yi Xian had tricked him. Seeing that Muemo had disappeared, a sigh came from the 3rd level. Yi Xian didn't return to the Sky Soul Temple because he had received news that the Grand Heavenly Venerate had led the people of the Sky Soul Temple to the Divine Dao Nation. The 10 Absolute Saints had already set their sights on him, so he had to go to the Divine Dao Nation's Women's College. Yi Xian raised his speed to the limit. In an unknown stellar domain, Yi Xian, who was riding on his sword, suddenly stopped. His expression was a little ugly. Not far away stood a person. It was Muemo. This guy didn't die. Yi Xian was a little shocked. How did he jump out of that mysterious space-time abyss? In the distance, Muemo looked at Yi Xian. Why aren't you running anymore? With a thought from Yi Xian, the green profound sword in its sheath suddenly unsheathed and slashed at Muemo like a bolt of lightning. In the distance, Muemo took a step forward and punched. Boom. A wave of fist energy blocked the green profound sword. This time Muemo was smart. He didn't let the green profound sword come into contact with his body because it was the green profound sword that came into contact with his body. That was why he was sent into that mysterious space-time. At this moment the green profound sword flew back into Yi Xian's hand. The next moment the green profound sword disappeared. Seeing this, Muemo frowned. "Why aren't you using that sword?" Yi Xian smiled. "I disdain using external objects." Muemo stared at Yi Xian. "What? Trying to fool me again? Come on, keep fooling me." Yi Xian, Muemo's expression turned cold. "Aren't you very good at fooling people? Come on, keep fooling them." Yi Xian sighed. "Sir, let's talk reason." Muemo mocked. "If you can fool them, then do it. If you can't, then talk reason." Yi Xian, Muemo suddenly walked slowly toward Yi Xian. Yi Xian said solemnly, "We have no enmity." Muemo sneered. "No enmity? Yi Xian, you're ridiculous. At our level, benevolence, righteousness, morality, right and wrong are all meaningless. We do things according to our own preferences. Understand?" Yi Xian suddenly turned and ran. Muemo sneered. "Trying to escape?" As he spoke, he suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, a powerful force tore through the field. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly turned around. His eyes were filled with shock and despair. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Muemo's face. However, he was still on guard because Yi Xian hadn't taken out that sword. He was still very afraid of that sword. But he knew that as long as he didn't touch that sword, he would be fine. As he thought, his fist had already reached Yi Xian's chest. At this moment, he frowned because Yi Xian still hadn't taken out that sword. What did this mean? Muemo suddenly felt uneasy. He wanted to retract his fist, but it was too late. Because his fist had already smashed into Yi Xian's chest. And Yi Xian didn't block it. Muemo was horrified. He cursed inwardly and was about to retreat. Boom. Yi Xian was suddenly sent flying, and the expression of Muemo, who was about to retreat, instantly changed greatly. Because he had once again fallen into that mysterious space-time abyss. Muemo was stunned. In the distance, Yi Xian shrugged. He tore open his clothes. Inside his clothes was a piece of armor that was as thin as a cicada's wing. This armor was formed from the profound azure sword. Yi Xian glanced at Muemo and smiled. "Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" In the distance, within the space-time abyss, Muemo suddenly raised his head and roared. "Huling Mu." Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn it, this guy is really shameless. He actually called for help. Without any hesitation, he turned and ran. There was no response from the starry sky. Muemo roared again. "Wuling Mu, the evil race is about to make a comeback." A moment later, a voice suddenly sounded from the starry sky. "Did the other side send you to anger me to death?" Chapter 1951. In the starry sky, Muemo had been rescued, but he was not happy. On the contrary, his expression was ugly to the extreme. He was once again sent into the mysterious space-time abyss. Muemo's expression became more and more gloomy. He refused to accept this. This guy in front of him had used a trick. At this moment, Wuling Mu's voice sounded, "Muemo, this is the last time I attack." Muemo's expression was extremely gloomy. His eyes were like 10,000-year-old ice without a trace of emotion. Obviously, he did not want to give up. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, "Return." Hearing this, Muemo's body trembled slightly. Without hesitation, he turned around and left. Underground Evil Clan. Gucho sat on the city wall. He looked at the distant horizon. The horizon was dark and there was nothing. At this moment, an old man appeared behind Gucho. He bowed slightly. "Patriarch." Saying this, he began to speak in a low voice. After a moment, Gucho suddenly laughed. "This young Master Yi is really interesting." The old man said solemnly, "Patriarch, that mysterious space-time abyss is very terrifying." Gucho nodded. "I've seen it." The old man hesitated, then asked, "Can Patriarch crack that space-time abyss?" Gucho smiled. "Even Wuling Mu can." "Do you think I can?" The old man was somewhat puzzled. "Then why did Patriarch deliberately lose to that young Master Yi?" Gucho said softly, "What would I get if I beat him? That sword?" The old man said, "Isn't that Patriarch's goal?" Gucho chuckled. "That sword is in young Master Ye's hands. It is a sword. but in the hands of others, unless young Master Yi sincerely gave it to me, that sword is a scourge." Saying this, he looked at the old man and smiled. Otherwise, how could that King Zhou Xian have not made a move until now? Of course, with his character he will never give up. The old man frowned. "Why?" Gucho smiled. "Because he is very strong. The stronger he is, the more conceited he is. Now it should be said that he is confident. If he can feel danger, he will not fear it. On the contrary, he will challenge it." The old man glanced at Gucho. "The patriarch is also such a person. It's just that the Snow Mountain King is alone, while the patriarch has to consider the entire clan." Gucho laughed and did not speak. Meanwhile, a woman in black armor suddenly appeared here. The black-armored woman bowed slightly. "Patriarch, everything is ready." Gucho slowly closed her eyes. "Wait." The black-armored woman and the old man were confused, but they didn't ask for the reason. On the city wall, Gucho's feet gently swayed, a faint smile on her face. No one knew what she was thinking. When Yi Xian returned to the Divine Dao Nation's Women's Academy, he was in pain. Aunt Ding was missing. Gone. A woman stood in front of Yi Xian. Her name was Lu Qi. And now, LV Qi was the person in charge of the women's college. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, "Miss Lu Qi, did Ding Aunt say where she went?" Lu Qi shook her head. "Nope." Yi Xian asked again, "What about Sister Nian the dean? Is there any news from them?" Lu Qi shook her head again. That day after the dean left with Miss An and the others, he did not return, nor did he send any news back. Yi Xian was a little annoyed. Damn it. Sister Nian did not return and Aunt Ding disappeared. Fine. Now Yi Xian was the boss of the women's college again. What was the boss going to do? He was going to shoulder the responsibility. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian frowned. Did Aunt Ding leave on purpose? The more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. If she did not leave, then if the 10 saints came here, she would definitely have to deal with them. And if she left now and the 10 saints came, then he would be in trouble. Thinking of this, Yi Xian suddenly stood up. He looked at Lu Qi and pointed with a finger. A storage ring landed in front of Lu Qi. "Cultivate well." After saying that, he turned and left. When she saw the contents of the storage ring, Lu Qi was stunned. So many supreme-grade crystal ores. Yi Xian left the women's college. He had to leave. If he did not leave, once the 10 saints found this place, the women's college would be in danger. Although he had tricked Muemo twice, he couldn't use this method too often. Moreover, Muemo wasn't even the strongest amongst the 10. At this moment, a woman appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian recognized the person. It was Xiong Ho, who had a grudge with him before. Xiong Ho smiled. "Young Master Yi, did you cause some trouble so you came back?" Yi Xian was speechless. Xiong Ho smiled. "Looking at your expression, it seems I guessed right." Yi Xian looked at Xiong Ho. "Is there something you need?" Xiong Ho smiled. "Nothing, I just learned that you're back. So I came to see." Yi Xian smiled. "Miss Xiong Ho, I have something to do." After saying that, he turned and left. At this moment, Xiong Ho suddenly asked, "Has Xi Wang reached destiny knowledge?" Yi Xian did not look back. "Soon." After saying that, he turned into a sword light and disappeared into the horizon. Xiong Ho's expression was complicated. She did not expect that Xi Wang would reach destiny knowledge soon. Xiong Ho sighed inwardly at the thought of this. She knew if she had cooperated with Yi Xian, her life would have been totally different. To reach destiny knowledge by herself? Almost impossible. The cultivation resources alone were enough to make her despair. After a while, Xiong Ho sighed again and left. After a long time, Yi Xian returned to the burial zone. As soon as he arrived, a woman appeared in front of him. Xueling Long. Yi Xian looked at Xueling Long and did not speak. Xueling Long walked to Yi Xian and bowed. "Master." Yi Xian smiled. "Why did you suddenly come to me?" Xueling Long suddenly looked up. The next moment, countless snowflakes rushed out of her body. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. He was prepared for this. He drew his sword and slashed. Boom. A snowflake shattered. At this moment, a snow lotus suddenly entered his forehead. Boom. Yi Xian's body shook violently. Then his body started to freeze bit by bit. He wanted to make a move, but he could not mobilize any power. At this moment, Xueling Long whispered, "Master, don't waste your energy." That is the supreme divine weapon of the great snow mountain that my ancestor gave me, the 10,000 miles of ice. It also contains the mysterious power that my ancestor left behind. With your current strength you cannot break it. Of course, don't worry. Once it enters your body it will not kill you. It will only seal your cultivation. That's all. Xian smiled. So it is the king of Snow Mountain who attacked me. But I don't understand why he did not attack me personally. What if he wants to borrow your hand instead of his own? Xuelinglong shook her head. I don't know. But my guess is that he wants to deal with the leader of the evil clan. Ancient sorrow. Xian said in a low voice. Why didn't he kill me? Why did he only seal my cultivation? Xuelinglong shook her head again. I don't know. But I guess it has something to do with the person behind you. My ancestor doesn't want to provoke the person behind you. He wants to deal with the evil clan. Xian sighed in his heart. Actually, when he saw this Xuelinglong he was already on guard. But he didn't expect that the king of Snow Mountain would personally deal with him. Xuelinglong looked at Xian. Master, don't resist. That divine item is in your body. If you resist, something bad will happen. Xian smiled. I won't resist. Xuelinglong nodded. Let's go. Then she turned around and disappeared into the horizon. But she quickly returned to Xian. Master, why didn't you leave? Xian sighed in a low voice. You have sealed my cultivation level. How can I leave? Girl, are you trying to test me to see if I still have my cultivation? Xuelinglong nodded. She hesitated and said, You won't blame me, right? Xian sighed in a low voice. Miss Linglong, from now on we are enemies. You can be cruel to me. Do you understand? I really don't like it when we are enemies. Then we have to be ambiguous. In the end we have to kill each other. It's too melodramatic. Do you understand? Xuelinglong was silent for a while and nodded. I understand. Then she opened her palm. 2 chains went through Xian's shoulder blades. Then she dragged Xian and flew into the sky. Xian said, What are you doing? Xuelinglong said, You want me to be cruel to you. Xian's expression froze. You can be cruel, but you should respect your enemy. Do you understand? Xuelinglong shook her head. Enemies don't deserve respect. Xian wanted to say something, but Xuelinglong shouted angrily, Shut up. If you say another word I'll strip you and drag you away. Xian was speechless. Just like that, Xuelinglong dragged Xian towards the Great Snow Mountain. Xian was speechless. What a cheap mouth. Damn it. After a while Xuelinglong brought Xian to the Great Snow Mountain. She chained Xian to a pillar. She looked at Xian coldly. Don't try anything funny. Otherwise my ancestor won't be merciful. Xian said, Let me go. I don't have my cultivation. I can't do anything. Xuelinglong was silent. Xian said, Your ancestor left that thing in my body. If I can break it, do you think you can trap me? If I can't break it, will I be a threat to you? Xuelinglong said, My ancestor is very strong. You better not do anything stupid. I feel that he doesn't want to kill you. Maybe he just wants to trap you. He doesn't want you to help the evil race. Xian smiled and said nothing. Xuelinglong waved her right hand. The chains on Xian's body disappeared. Xuelinglong glanced at Xian. You can walk around but don't go down the mountain. Then she turned and left. Xian closed his eyes. Xiaota, it's time for you to show off. After a while Xiaota said, Young master, I'm just a tower. Xian was speechless. P.S. Happy Lantern Festival. Chapter 1952. Just a pagoda. Xian's face darkened. UF ** King, no, you're a pagoda again. I really want to sell this stupid pagoda. At this moment Xiaota said, Young master, have you ever thought that if you break the seal now it's actually not a good thing? Xian said with a smile, Why not? Xiaota said, Anyway, even if you break the seal you can't beat Snow Mountain King. If he can seal you once he can seal you twice. Xian, Xiaota continued, for now in the battle between the evil race and 10 lives saint, forgive me for being blunt, but young master, you can only be a bystander. Xian frowned, bystander. Xiaota thought about it then said, I can't explain this word to you. Xian didn't understand. Why? Xiaota said, this word is very complicated. The meaning it conveys is beyond my knowledge as a pagoda. I can only say that this word, those who understand it will understand it. Those who don't, no matter how I explain it, it's hard to understand. Understand? Yi Xian, Xiao Ta continued. Young master, if there's a chance in the future, you can come to Sister Lian Shuang's hometown to play. It's fun there. Yi Xian smiled and was about to speak when Xue Linglong suddenly appeared in front of him. Yi Xian looked at Xue Linglong. Is the evil race coming out? Xue Linglong shook her head. Not yet. Yi Xian frowned. Now he actually hoped that Guqiu could defeat this 10-live saint. Xue Linglong looked at Yi Xian. Follow me. Then she turned and left. Yi Xian followed Xue Linglong to a large hall. In the middle of the hall stood a statue of a middle-aged man. Snow Mountain King. The invincible Snow Mountain King. Xue Linglong looked at Yi Xian. Please take a seat. Yi Xian didn't stand on ceremony and sat to the side. At this moment Xue Linglong sat opposite Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian laughed. What do you want to say? Xue Linglong remained silent for a while and said, Who do you think will win this time? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Xue Linglong looked at Yi Xian. Who will you help? Yi Xian smiled and said, I won't help anyone. Xue Linglong stared at Yi Xian. You will help the evil race. Because the evil clan treated you very well, and the 10 ultimate saints set their sights on you the moment they came out, right? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, What exactly are you trying to say? Xue Linglong remained silent for a long time before she said, I can let you go. Yi Xian was stunned. Xue Linglong looked at Yi Xian. But you have to promise me that you won't get involved in this matter. Go find the people behind you. I don't know how strong they are, but since my ancestor didn't kill you, it must be because he's afraid of them. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Does your ancestor know that you let me go? Xue Linglong shook her head and wanted to say something else. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Miss Linglong, don't be so childish. Xue Linglong stared at Yi Xian. If my ancestor wins, they definitely won't let you go. Yi Xian smiled. Why do you care so much about me? Miss Linglong, don't tell me that you've fallen in love with me in such a short time? Xue Linglong was angry. What nonsense are you talking about? You really don't know what's good for you. You can die or not. Then she turned around and left. Yi Xian shook his head and said softly, Idiot, is your ancestor a soft-hearted person? Then he looked at the statue with a faint smile. No one knew what he was thinking. Rumble. Right at this moment, an explosion that shook the heavens suddenly resounded from the distant horizon. The entire burial zone shook. In the hall Yi Xian said softly, Finally out? Then he stood up and left. When he walked out of the hall Xue Linglong was there, her face cold. Yi Xian was about to speak when Xue Linglong took him and disappeared. When they appeared again they were under the tower that sealed the evil race. Yi Xian looked at the tower and saw a man standing under it. It was Guqiu. His clothes were as white as snow, untainted by even a speck of dust. Guqiu looked at the tower with a faint smile on his face. At this time the tower gradually trembled and mysterious space-time powers poured down from the bottom of the tower. Next to Yi Xian, Xue Linglong said, He wants to fight against all the space-time formations by himself. Yi Xian frowned. He thought that Guqiu would use the evil race's power to fight against the space-time power. He didn't expect that Guqiu wanted to fight against the space-time formations set up by the 12 destined knowing saints by himself. The 12 destined knowing saints. Among them there was also the Snow Mountain King, a terrifying super expert. The space-time power contained in the space-time formations was truly terrifying. It could easily kill a destined knowing realm powerhouse like Xue Linglong. It could be said that the so-called destined knowing realm powerhouses were as small as ants in front of the space-time formations. Any one of the 12 saints from all those years ago was a proud genius of the heavens. In the distance Guqiu suddenly opened his palm. A silver thread flew up like a dancing silver snake. A sharp tearing sound suddenly resounded. The silver thread tore through the sky and crisscrossed the space-time formations. Compared to the countless space-time formations, the silver thread was like a small boat in a tempestuous storm. It was so thin and tiny. However, the silver thread was gradually shattering the space-time formations. Yi Xian's expression turned solemn when he witnessed this scene. Guqiu had actually resisted the space-time grand formation set up by 12 saints of destiny knowledge by herself. Suddenly Guqiu smiled and said, Break. As soon as he finished speaking, the silver thread in his hand suddenly shot into the sky and entered the pagoda. Bang! The entire tower shook violently and then it started to collapse bit by bit. However, the last level didn't move at all. A short while later, besides the last level, all the other levels had collapsed and vanished. 9 people appeared in the sky. There were 8 men and 1 woman. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man who held a palm-sized stone in his left hand. Next to Yi Xian, Shui Linglong looked at the middle-aged man and said softly, "Wu Lingmu." In the sky, Wu Lingmu looked at Guqiu with a calm expression. Behind him, Mu Mo's gaze was fixed on Yi Xian. His gaze was like a sword that wanted to pierce through Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at Mu Mo and didn't provoke him. His cultivation was sealed now, so he didn't want to cause trouble. At this moment, Guqiu suddenly closed his eyes. After countless years of darkness, it's over. As soon as he spoke, he slapped down with his right hand. Bang! The ground behind him suddenly cracked, and in the next moment, countless members of the evil race surged out. When the evil clan members came out, their eyes were filled with confusion at first. Then they became excited and finally they became angry. Countless members of the evil race roared madly on the ground. For many members of the evil race, this was the first time they had seen the outside world. Seeing this, Yi Xian sighed in his heart. If he had been sealed for so many years, he would have gone crazy. He knew that the evil race would take revenge. Even if they died, they would take revenge. They had been suppressed for generations and this hatred was irreconcilable. At this moment, the members of the evil race looked up at Wu Lingmu and the others in the sky. Their eyes were filled with hatred. In the sky, Wu Lingmu and the others were calm. There was no change in their emotions. Wu Lingmu suddenly appeared in front of Guqiu. At this moment, 6 black-robed elders appeared behind Guqiu. They were like ghosts and had no aura at all. Wu Lingmu looked at Guqiu and smiled. "Let's exchange a few moves?" Guqiu nodded. "Okay." As soon as he spoke, the space-time they were in suddenly became illusory. The next moment they appeared in a mysterious space-time. Outsiders could still see them, but they were no longer in this space-time. Wu Lingmu looked at Guqiu and smiled. "Come." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward and smashed his fist forward. It was a simple punch. There was no fluctuation of energy. It was just like a punch from an ordinary person. This punch was really simple to the extreme. However, the space-time in front of Guqiu was indeed disintegrating bit by bit. Disintegrating space-time. It was not that there was no fluctuation of energy in this punch. It was just that the power was too strong, so strong that it could disintegrate space-time. Seeing this, Yi Xian's expression became extremely solemn. He realized that the difference between the Destiny Realm powerhouses of this era and the Destiny Realm powerhouses of the past was like heaven and earth. Facing this punch, how could Guqiu block it? In the distance, Guqiu smiled. He did not use the silver thread. Instead, he punched. Also a punch. As he punched, a strange scene suddenly appeared. The space-time that had been disintegrating around him actually condensed at this moment and then gradually returned to its original state. Seeing this, the expressions of the 8-10 ultimate saints in the sky finally changed. A trace of seriousness appeared in the eyes of the 8-10 ultimate saints. Wu Lingmu smiled slightly, as expected of the most monstrous genius in the history of the Vile clan. "I'm afraid that even the ancestor of the Vile clan is far inferior to you." Guqiu smiled. "The punch contains the truth of space-time. It's amazing to be able to fuse the fist Dao and the space-time Dao to such an extent." Wu Lingmu laughed heartily. "Let's do it again." As soon as he spoke, he suddenly took a step forward and punched again. This punch caused everyone's expressions to change drastically. The moment Wu Lingmu punched, an extremely terrifying aura of destruction suddenly spread out. The powerful aura directly shattered the space-time in the field. The entire world began to be annihilated at this moment. Everyone in the field retreated madly. Shui Linglong even took Yi Xian and retreated hundreds of thousands of zhang away. When Yi Xian and Shui Linglong stopped, Yi Xian's expression became extremely solemn. At this moment he was extremely shocked. One had to know that Wu Lingmu and Guqiu were very very far away from them. They were not even in the same space-time. However, Wu Lingmu's punch alone was enough to destroy their space-time. It was just his aura. Furthermore, it had leaked out from such a faraway place. It could be said that the aura was not even 1/100th of Wu Lingmu's punch. Yi Xian took a deep breath and tightened his grip on the Xianxia sword. He thought to himself, with the protection of the Qing, I am invincible. You guys go all out, I'll go all out.